comes from two areas in particular, the Constitution and the legislation that interprets it. The legislature adopted the General Property Tax Act in 1893, and between the Constitution and it, the assessments are set based on market value. The level of assessment is set at 50%. What that means is that we take a price of a house. This year, the average price is around $84,000, and the assessment, therefore, should be set around $42,000. That's the goal of everything. Nowadays, when we get into taxes, taxable value comes into play as well. Taxable value was a construction of the Proposal A in 1994, and that was a constitutional change, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There are various players that are involved in the taxing process, from the state level down to the local level. The State Tax Commission is the governing body in the Treasury Department that looks after what assessors do. In the county equalization director is to look over all the jurisdictions in the county. In Wayne County, there are 43 of them, and the city of Wayne, for which I'm the local assessor, is one of them. However, when it comes to all the numbers we talk about tonight, the thing that controls everything, whether it's the cap, the neighborhood assessments, or all the assessments in Wayne for residential, or anything else, it's the market that controls everything. So when we talk about things, everything is market-driven here. Now, the tax bill itself nowadays is built based on two things: the millage rate that is set by the various governing bodies and the taxable value. So what's important to each individual homeowner, the thing that makes the difference, is the taxable value. The millage rate, of course, is set by 8 different authorities or boards that set their portion, and among them is the state. Nowadays, the Treasury has the 6 mil education tax. The tax rates are the same for everyone within a city or district if you're a homestead owner, or they're different if you're not a homestead owner, but nevertheless, they're the same for each of those groups, and those tax rates are expressed in mills or dollars per thousand of taxable value. For this past tax year in Wayne, those tax rates were 60.54 mils for anybody that did not have their property declared as a homestead. If you had a homestead, you got 18 mil tax credit for your school taxes, and your homestead rate was 42.54 mils, or $42.54 per $1,000 of taxable value. Now, as I said, taxable value is the number that your property tax is based on. That calculation is determined by law. It's a mathematical calculation. It has no art in it whatsoever. It is not market-based. It is just a number, and it's not set by me. It is, however, the lower of the cap value for the given year or the assessed value. So if your assessment is low enough, it will provide the cap itself. But if it's not, it's always the cap that affects what your taxable value is. How do we calculate it annually? Every property has a cap value nowadays. That cap value was originally set in 1994. If you hadn't sold, there'd be the assessment at the time your house sold. Cap value becomes, the new cap value is the old taxable value multiplied by the inflation rate. That inflation rate is determined by the market. It's measured by the U.S. Department of Labor. It's a consumer price index. And it's adopted every year by the State Tax Commission. For this year, it's 1.6%. So that is the main controlling factor for everybody. It won't be the assessment. The assessment will be the controlling factor for people whose houses sell or transfer. The assessed value, however, is very important. It again is 50% of cash value or market value, again by law. It's determined by the market, measured from sales, and it's applied by the assessor to start. Basically, we work from tables to come up with the assessment, but that's where we start from. Each year thereafter, each neighborhood that a house is in or a home is in is adjusted by sales as the sales indicate. And when we get done, we're all checked over by the equalization department to make sure that at least in total our assessments are right. So how does this process work on an annual basis? The equalization director at the very beginning already has collected the sales and calculated ratios based on it. The ratios that he saw looking at things this year indicate a commercial factor of 2.1% or a factor of 1.0212. An industrial factor which will not increase, the industrial properties are going to stay the same, of a flat 1, and a residential factor of 1.091 or 9.1% increase. He sends that notification out to me as the assessor, and council saw that in the letter that you received in January. I take those same sales, look them over, and because I'm a little bit closer to the data, take a look at them over the 2-year period that we look at sales for, and throw out anything. We get a lot of sales in Wayne where people buy a house, fix it up, or move out for some reason in the 2-year period. We don't want both those sales in there, so we generally throw out the earlier sale. It depends on what happens at the time. But we discard those type of bad sales, and we look for other things that involve anything like divorce or something that there might be undue pressure on the seller to sell. Now, we look at them in the neighborhoods, and we calculate a neighborhood factor. This is not required in Michigan, but it is the best assessing practice. The factors are applied by class in some cities, but here they're applied by neighborhood, and that is where you get to your final assessments. When we're done, the assessments in total go back to the equalization director, and he checks to see that we really have done the job correctly. If we haven't, he's got a responsibility in the law as well. And his responsibility, if we don't raise the assessments far enough, will be to make sure that in total they are raised farther. And he can apply a factor greater than 1. However, our goal is to make sure that doesn't happen and that the factor is exactly 1. The data itself, again, are taken from sales from the Register of Deeds office. They are the most accurate information we can get, and everybody is supposed to record their sale. If they don't, they're in jeopardy, of course, that something might happen to their property and the sale will not be recorded properly. But the County Equalization Department takes a look at those and has already gone through them, like I said, to make sure that things are in good shape. We ended up, however, with 405 sales when we got done. That's over a 2-year period again, that period from April of 1996 through March of 1998. On the neighborhoods that we deal with, I sat down originally with Wayne County assessors and various realtors around here who were interested in making sure that good equity was established in the area. And we started out with 16 neighborhoods. We revised them a couple of times, but basically for the years 1998 and 1999, the assessment neighborhoods have stayed exactly the same. In your material, there's a table on page 7, and I'd just like to highlight a couple of things from that, if I might. Of the 405 sales, we had sale dollars exceeding 33 million, almost $34 million in sales. The average sale was $83,600 approximately, and that compares to an average sale of the year before of $75,000, approximately $200. So that went up quite nicely. And that's good for people who are selling in Wayne. The sales ratio that we calculated overall was 45.1%, and we ended up using an ECF slightly over 9.1%, but Board of Review corrections will take care of that. Now, the neighborhoods themselves were established for the purpose of spreading that 9.1% increase over the whole area on an equitable basis. In looking at the assessment changes for 1999, and starting on the west side of town, I'd like to point out neighborhood 2 first of all. This area in this section of town is basically south of the railroad tracks between Vinoy Road and over to Gloria. It is our most typical neighborhood this year at 9.7% increase. It typifies the type of increases that we see over the whole area. The rest of the areas on the west side of town, the east side of town, Area 3 has an increase of 7.9%. Area 13 has an increase of some 6.9%, and Area 16 has an increase of 6.6%. So they're fairly tight around the middle of the range. Only Area 8, which for sales purposes in the past has been grouped with Area 8 on the west side of town, houses being fairly similar there, sees an increase of 12.4%. Now, moving to the middle area of town, which is basically between the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad and Howe Road area, Area 4, the north side of town, saw a fairly large increase last year. Its increase this year looks to be quite a bit lower at 1.6%. So we're starting to see some variation here. Area 10, nestled on the east side of Wayne Road, below Annapolis, will see an increase of 12.7%. Area 11 will see an increase of 12.5%. And Area 14 here will see an increase of 13.5%. So this area is a little bit higher than the averages. Area 15, north of Annapolis here on the east side of Wayne Road, will only see an increase of 6.9%. Moving further west of the C&O Railroad tracks, and Area 5 just crosses over to pick up Flora Lane as well. Area 5 has an increase of about 10.2%. That's above the averages. Area 6, which is the newest subdivision, Tanglewood, only had a couple of sales, and that area saw an increase of 12.4%. Area 7, however, area that was just built before it, including new homes and legacy estates and the condominiums, still we are not seeing a lot of price increase in that area, and so for 2 years in a row now, 3 years in a row, there's no increase in that area. So their assessments have been quite high. The area surrounding it, the remaining area north of Michigan Avenue in Area 8, again, is 12.4% increase. South of Michigan Avenue, but still north of the railroad tracks, and on the west side of the Ford plant, is Louis Savage Garfield Park subdivision. And that area has the largest increase in Wayne this year. It'll be 17.9%. Now, of course, these are all limited by the 1.6% taxable value cap, but the assessments have increased very strongly in this year. Finally, Area 12 down here, which includes houses along Van Born Road, Treadwell, and Bendix, that Area 12 will only go up 3.1%. To repeat, the average here is 9.1%, but the taxable value cap, again, is just 1.6%. So your taxable value, which will control what your taxes are, will only go up 1.6%. So how do we notify people? What do we do next? Once these are created, the assessor every year is required by law to mail out tax notices to all owners whose values go up. But we mail them to everybody so that you can see your assessment every year and know whether it's gone up or stayed the same or gone down. That has to be mailed out by March 1st or with 10 days before the Board of Review, so it's mailed out at the end of February. If you have any questions about things, once you get your notice, the place to come, of course, is the assessor's office. And we can either do that by coming to City Hall. We'll try and answer your questions and talk about the tax issues as well involved here. Try and resolve any concerns if people have any. And if, where necessary, schedule appointments for the March Board of Review. Now, for people who don't know what the March Board of Review is, there are 3 people on the Board of Review that are appointed by City Council or taxpayers just like everybody else. They have to own something in town, and they have to be electors. That's their 2 basic requirements. What they decide on are things that affect the 1999 tax roll, and that has to do with your assessed value, which is the main concern for everybody. That's the thing that works along with your taxable value. If any mistakes have been made in calculating taxable value, which is possible but not likely because this is all handled by computer nowadays, the taxable value can be considered by them as well. But basically people come in for assessed value considerations. The classification of your property, whether it's residential or commercial or industrial, that may be of concern to people. Generally it is not. Wayne doesn't change a whole lot, so those stay the same basically from year to year. The other things that can be brought to the Board of Review's attention is the homestead percentage, if some mistake has been made there. And finally, for people who can't afford to pay their taxes, there is a provision that allows the Board of Review to look at people, basically for a single income person, somebody under $10,000 in income approximately, could come to the Board of Review, and if the board sees fit, they can go as far as wiping your assessment out, which would take your taxes down to 0. They have that power to do it. So that's one of the very nice things that they can do. Board of Review this year is held in March. There are 2 dates that are controlled by the charter, but we actually open it up for another day as well. If council approves this today or has any problem with this, we plan to open up on Friday, March 12th and have residential appointments on March 12th and March 15th. On Friday they'll be in the morning and afternoon, and on Monday in the afternoon and evening for people who work during the day. On Tuesday, March 16th, we'll consider poverty issues in the morning and commercial and industrial issues in the afternoon. If there are any additional appointments that are needed beyond that period, then the Board of Review can extend its schedule. For people that have come in, talked to us, and looked things over and still feel that the assessor won't change anything on their property, their recourse is, of course, to come to this Board of Review. But you need to check your notice first of all, see what your value is when it comes out. Check it with a reputable appraiser or realtor who can give you some ideas if you don't already know what things are selling for in your neighborhood. Then come and schedule an appointment with us. Come into the City Hall offices or call us at 722-2000 and we'll set up an appointment. If you're disabled or out of town, all you have to do, or out of town on appeal days, all you have to do is write a letter of appeal to the Board of Review. You have to make sure it gets here by the close of the Board of Review. So that's by the 16th. There is one further step. If the Board of Review does not meet your expectations on things with your assessment, then there is an additional step that's available in Michigan. This is to make it completely fair. Michigan Tax Tribunal is the quasi-judicial arm of the state. It acts like a court, in other words. It's there to hear your assessment appeals on value in particular, but any of the other questions we talked about. And the only 2 requirements are that you have to have been to the Board of Review to begin with. So if you have anything that's an appealable issue, you need to appear at the Board of Review. Then you have to file a petition or a notice of appeal with the Michigan Tax Tribunal that is postmarked before June 30th of this particular year. Now, there are still questions that come up, even though people don't show up at Board of Review, that come up when the tax bills get mailed out. So no longer can the Board of Review consider value after the March board, but they can do other things. Where there are mutual mistakes made, where we agree with you that something was made as an error, we can correct those through the Board of Review in July and in December. We can look at clerical errors. Somebody wrote down a wrong number and things got screwed up. They can consider more poverty appeals at this time, but we try and get everybody that has a poverty appeal to come in March if possible. And they can also consider homestead percentage questions at that time, if we didn't apply the right homestead to your property. So in summary, what has happened this year is we're going to be applying residential assessment increases from 0 to 17.9%, as you saw the range. The total residential increase, again, is 9.1%. That's over the whole city. And that total meets the equalization target of 9.1%. That's the thing that I have to do in my job. Owners can appeal, of course, to the March Board review where individual cases take their assessments too high, and our office won't change anything for you. Finally, the important thing to remember is that your taxable value, and therefore the taxes themselves, those increases will be capped at 1.6% if there's no change in the tax rate. And at this point, we know of no change, so that's where it stands for the time being. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer them.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Ed, can you put back the one I want to say?
You read your mind with his back to you, besides.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Okay, in some area like 4,
In the center of town here?
4 or 8 on both sides of the town, we have some differences in the prices. We have a group of homes, they sell between 150,000 and 200, and we have some homes they sell from 250 and up. Okay.
The 250 and up prices are basically a neighborhood 6, but I understand what you're saying, yes.
Okay, so and you have one section have both sides of the homes, and the one selling with lower price been going up 20 and 15 or 13%, and the one above $250,000 is not increasing. They're not selling more than what they're worth. Would be fair to increase the assessment and all of them because of the lower one going up?
Again, if there are particular concerns, we should look at those particular concerns, and that's what the Board of Review would also do.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, what we're doing all the time is comparing sale price to the assessment. Mm-hmm. And that's where we come up with the initial ratio before we calculate the factor. The factor is the amount that's needed to raise the assessments. And we do compare those overall. You're right, there are lower selling priced homes in these areas, there are higher priced homes in these areas. But hopefully the assessment always reflects that. And what we try and do, to be fair there, is look at that comparison across the board and see that they're fair everywhere. The neighborhood 14, where our greatest amount of homes are and greatest amount of value is as a single neighborhood, that has lower priced homes, but they tend to be in a slightly lower range. You're right. When you get into some of these other neighborhoods, there are wider differences. I would have to say that in general, Area 8 has more consistency than Area 4. Area 4 has very modest homes and some better homes in it, so there's a price variation there. But generally speaking, Area 8 in this area in particular, almost every home is well over $100,000. So what we're comparing there is always to the assessment, and those assessments should reflect that already.
My question, probably it's very difficult to have answer for it, is if we keep increasing the assessment according to the sales and the income of the person is not increasing and the inflation rate going up, I don't know where the people are going to go. I don't think in 10 years from now, you're going to afford to live in your own home.
Well, I don't know if you saw the article in the newspaper the other day comparing Wayne with some of the surrounding communities. Mm-hmm. Wayne was about in the middle, and there are a lot of communities with a lot higher average sales than we saw there. People are buying those homes. I don't know what to tell you, but people are finding ways to buy those homes, and my only solace to you is that the 1.6% cap on taxable value is something that will protect those people all the time. Well, that's a very fair thing about the law now.
The 1.6 factor is built into it to, basically, it's a cost of living. Mm-hmm. It reflects the inflation rate, and for the most part, this doesn't affect everybody but for the most part, people are earning about 1.6% more money this year over last. Now, some are not, but some are earning a lot more than 1.6. That's why the taxable value cap was installed in that proposal that passed statewide to affect the issue that you brought up, because it used to be that your taxes were based on your SEV. Now your taxes are based on your taxable value. And as Ed has pointed out, that's being capped this year at 1.6. Last year it was 2.6. So you're not paying taxes anymore based on your SEV. That is going up whatever the neighborhood indicates. But you are paying taxes based on the taxable value. So, and then if there's someone who's in a bad spot, they can come to the Board of Review and discuss their particular situation. And that's what the Board of Review is set up to do, is to try and understand someone's personal financial situation and maybe help them that year to handle their taxes.
In most cases, the Board of Review is looking strictly at sales and at the value that they expect your house to get. The income comes into it involved in poverty cases, but in most cases, they're going to look at those sales. And if a certain segment of sales, the upper end of the market, for instance, is not raising as high as the rest, and we've pushed values up there, the Board of Review will take a look at that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Shirley?
Who sets the equalization target?
That's basically from the market, but it's done by people in the Equalization Director's office who select those out for all 43 communities, and they compare them. My statistics bear out their numbers.
That's in Wayne County?
Right, every county, all 83 counties.
Oh. And the 1.6, is that statewide?
Yes.
Well, I hope that at the Board of Review, that they take into the account that the seniors only got a 1.3 increase, cost of living increase, 1.3%.
Generally, people on Social Security, seniors, have a problem all the way through it. It's not anything new this year. They have a problem every year. Generally, their increases are below the rate of inflation, no matter what it is.
Well, I know that this is one of the lowest increases over the past couple of years for the people that are on a fixed income. And I hope the Board of Review takes that into effect, into consideration when they come before us.
Well, the poverty application is a very stiff one to meet. We ask you all sorts of personal questions, and some people are reluctant to answer those questions, but we encourage them to apply if they're in a position where they need that help.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. First, I apologize for being tardy. I was doing my dance duty with my daughter tonight. But I do have some questions. We've been handling this type of presentation for 6 out of the last 7 years, where we've broken down the neighborhoods since I've been involved. And in the past, Ms. Rothfeld, you've eliminated sales in neighborhoods that were out of the ballpark of the neighborhood.
Right.
I looked at all the sales here over the weekend, and I noticed, I don't know if anyone else up here noticed, there were some sales that appeared to be way above what that neighborhood saw as an average, and they were included this year. And I've circled them, and if you want to go through them, first, is everything in here was used to determine the percentage of each neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, anything that you dropped would not be in here?
Correct.
Okay, because there was just a few that caught my attention.
How many did you drop, approximately?
Over 10.
So we turn to the packet that was given to us on Friday on page, the first one is, at the top it'll say N5. There's 2 sales on that particular page that just appear way above what that market was in that neighborhood. The first one being the second one down, 185,000, and then the second to the bottom, 146,000. Just looking at the other numbers from the sales, the average from the rest of those homes is well under 110,000. Those are the only 2 homes that are above 120,000. And when you're dealing with that big of a difference in the sale, my concern was, is that going to drive those other homes or that neighborhood up because we included those 2 large sales?
Okay, now, your focus is on the sales here. If I could shift your focus over to the sales ratio column, which is the second or third from the right. Sales ratios there, you see, are 32 or almost 33% up to 56%. both of those sales, despite the amount, seem to compare fairly favorable and come within this range here. And it is that range that we look at for the differences. Where we look at the amounts that are way out of line are things that are not accounted for by either our assessments properly or that are just plain goofy sales that we can't understand why the price was so low or so high compared to things. Where it falls in the range, it's still a valid sale. You notice that obviously thin bark homes, which are my neighborhood as a matter of fact, are in the $110,000, $120,000 range approximately, and those two appear a bit higher because they're from the Flora Lane area. But obviously their assessment follows along with it. They've got higher assessments based for that, and therefore they're valid to put in with the area there.
But the sales ratio on that number 2 down on the $185,000 sale was 39%,
Right.
which is still 5% under the total at the bottom of the page. And like I said, that caught my attention because I know in the past you eliminated those where there were large gaps with the sale of
Basically,
the
I
home.
look at the sales ratios to see that we don't have one in below 25% approximately, and normally anywhere above 75%, although I think I actually included one this year. And the difficulty there is we don't know why these homes are that far off from the assessment averages, and we care not to use them. But again, we've got a period here where prices are moving fairly quickly. At the 9% range, you're nearly a 10% area, and you will see quite a bit of variation in periods like that.
Okay, but possibly for next year, could that street, since you mentioned both those sales were on this street, be moved to another comparable street? Because just looking at those numbers, anyone who doesn't get a chance to watch this or observes these pages that are made available, those numbers are going to stick out, and that's...
Well, again, we have talked with some of the realtors, and the recommendation is that that was the best neighborhood to put things in, that it compared most closely, because there are some smaller homes in there as well, most closely with the thin bark homes. And it turns out that in this period, 2 of the homes that sold are slightly larger, but there are larger homes than that in there, and they're smaller homes. So sometimes you get the luck of the draw on these things, but that is where you try and measure this and come up with averages. That's why we work with averages on this. And that sale will be in there. Let's see, both those are 97 sales. One's a 96 sale. Those will both drop out next year, and we'll see whether that makes any difference in the study.
Okay. The other pages are similar, Mayor, where they were, the council wants to look at a later date, they were just extremely higher than the existing.
When price movement is lower, you don't see as great inflation, you don't tend to get as great a variation in prices. They tend to narrow a little bit. When you get sales moving up a lot quicker, then you tend to get greater variation. So I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but it happens.
Some people are in a hurry to sell and others aren't.
Well, and we don't know. We don't know who those people are.
Any other questions or comments, Assessor?
One question. It's a wishful thinking, but I have to ask the question. If the market value show decrease in prices, let's say those $150,000 home, it's not been selling, and 10 home in the area sold for $120,000. Now our assessment would go down.
Correct.
Okay, that's just one question.
To answer that a different way, it doesn't matter whether prices go up or go down. The assessor's supposed to set them at 50% of market value, and if there is downward pressure, and you haven't seen that in this sort of market, but my parents live in an area where prices have gone up and down 20% twice in the last 20 years, you would see decreases in value. And it just hasn't happened here, but the assessor is determined by law, again, to reduce those assessments.
And my second question, how you determine area 1 and 2 and 3, like 8, we have one side of the town and we have the other side of the town.
I originally had a neighborhood here by itself. For several years, we did not have enough sales in that neighborhood to try and determine them on their own. I suspect this year there are enough. However, they were most similar to homes over in this area over here. And in a discussion with council one year, for the purpose of trying to group those and come up with a valid statistic, in other words, having enough sales to determine what the increases should be, we grouped these two areas together. And they basically have similar buyers. There are some dirt streets right around this area here, just as there are dirt streets around here. And, but however, the type of buyer that buys in both those areas tends to be very similar.
I have a question.
Yes, sure.
In Area 6, you show 2 sales,
Correct.
and they went up 12.4, but in Area 7, you have 11 sales, and they didn't go up any.
Again, the comparison looks at the sales ratios. If you take a look at neighborhood 7, which is this neighborhood up here, and you look at the sales there, that we've got 11 sales, you'll see a range from about 35% all the way up to 68%. But you see a bunch of them clustered right around the middle, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, or 52 if you will. When you average it out, it comes out to 49.7%. And that is the acceptable ratio for the assessor. As long as he gets them in the 49 to 50% ratio, that's considered right. You can't be perfectly on the 50% mark all the time. So there's a little bit of leeway in how we look at these things. But those sales average right out to 49.7%, and that's considered appropriate there. And you can see that those sales, for the most part, even though there's a $235,000 sale in that neighborhood, most of them are grouped in that range from 150 on up. When you turn to the other neighborhood that you talked about, and there are very few homes in that neighborhood, but it's still a new neighborhood, and we're trying to group those by itself for the time being, because the number of sales we get in there just barely able to give us an indication of what's going on. But we're comparing them to our assessments. And unfortunately, our assessments started out a little bit low there. But when you compare there the ratios are a ratio of 40.4 and 48%. That averages out at 43.7%. And based on that average, we have to raise them up.
And then now in Area 14, all those houses are not the same.
No, they're not.
They're not the same like in Area 6 or 7 or 5.
They're not as bad as Area 4, though, in some of the other areas.
But-
they're,
Well, they got a 13.5% increase,
right.
but they're not all valued the same. I don't know how you can,
Again, the value in the market is supposed to be reflected in the value in the assessment. And we take in, your basic determinant for a home is the square footage. That's your basic determinant, how big the home is. And we take a look at each individual home based on the way it's built. When we take a look at it the first time, we go back at subsequent times when people pull permits, make additions to their homes and everything else. That is supposed to be reflected in that assessment. If it's done properly, and hopefully it is, then the comparison is between that assessment and that sale. Only those two things. So it's very particular to that house. When you group them together, you get a range like you see here. The lowest sales ratio is 27%. The highest is almost 70%. But there's a great cluster of them. If you just look down that page there, you can see the cluster is right around the low 40 range, the 40 to 44, 45%. The number of homes selling in that area is right around that line there that I drew as the midpoint, or the way the ratio calculates out at 43.3%. It doesn't matter when you're making this comparison whether you're comparing a 2,000 square foot home, a 1,500 square foot home, or a 1,000 square foot home. If it's properly assessed, and we hope they all are, then you're comparing like prices. The selling price for a $2,000 or square foot home is going to be a lot larger than the selling price for a 1,000 square foot home. But as long as the assessment is right, you're making that comparison on an individual basis, and all you're taking is the ratio to figure out what the average ratio is. So that's where those come from. It doesn't matter what size the house is. I keep trying to tell it to people. It's a difficult concept to put across, but you're comparing apples to apples in each comparison. It's the selling price of a home to the assessment for the home. You're not comparing to somebody else's assessment. So that's where the validity comes in. And then when you group these all together, you try and look and see, do we have something goofy? Is the average turning out to be way higher than the middle of the group, or way low compared to the middle of the group? Then something's wrong. You've got something in there that's making a wrong, pushing the values in one direction or the other. But you don't see that in this neighborhood. As a matter of fact, you see a very regular spread of assessment sales ratios right across the board there. And that regularity and the size of the sample here, it's 90 sales, gives you a great deal of comfort for what's going on here.
Yeah, the more sales you're working with, the more of a barometer
I feel far more comfortable with these sales, even though it's probably statistically, this area here, there are 27 homes in your neighborhood there?
27 lots.
27 lots,
But
they're
there's
not
only
even that
20
many homes yet.
Yeah.
But I feel more comfortable with the assessments and the increases shown down here because we have a large body of data to work with. And when you have that, it just shows it out beautifully.
Any other questions? Yes,
Dave?
behind you, Jim.
Oh,
Then Jim.
okay.
They're supposed to rezone for around Monroe School. Those homes are going to be much higher priced than the homes that are in the area now.
Right.
Are you going to have them still in our district, or are you going to give them a number by themselves?
We'll probably start them out by themselves. As time goes along, they'd probably be combined with everybody else, but that will probably be 5 or 6 years down the road. Again, there won't be enough, just the same as I'm having a problem with this area here, I would have a problem with that, getting enough sales after the initial sales to see. The resales are where we really make our determination on whether the initial prices will hold up or not, and then we'll try and determine over the 5 years after they're built. After that time, you'll probably see that included in your neighborhood as well. But again, the size of the sale doesn't matter. The size of the sale doesn't matter. That's why we can look at things across the whole city and combine them together. That's why we can combine 1,500 square foot homes with 2,000 square foot homes. It's the size of the sale compared to the assessment, and if the assessment's done correctly, you don't have a problem with that. To start with, we would separate it issue.
Initially, though, we'll have it as a separate neighborhood so we can track it.
Okay, Jim?
Yes. For the purpose of assessment or appraisal, is Wayne treated as a neighborhood?
By the equalization director, there are 43
I know in my
different...
appraisal class, the neighborhood has a definition.
Not by us. It's treated that way by the county. They look at each taxing
The entire
jurisdiction,
city?
whether you're Dearborn, Detroit, or whatever, they look at you as an entire city.
Entire neighborhood.
City. Neighborhoods are smaller than cities. They can, in some cases, they could go from city to
When you do
city.
the comparables, you treat them as neighborhoods?
When we do them,
Yeah.
we break down the city.
When it's on the breakdown, it's treated as neighborhoods for the comparables?
I think the answer to your question is yes, Jim, but I'm confused by the question.
Well, it's a valid question.
Okay, but I'm not understanding, I guess, could you?
Let me just move on. Points, how is that treated? I'm just curious, over in Area 13, are points factored into the sales points?
The selling price is the only determinant.
FHA,
We do not know the financing terms of most of these sales. And we probably don't know the financing terms of any of the sales.
so the points
So
would
it's
add
only
a layer to the value. That
It's
really
only the
is
selling
not-
price that's considered.
Not, you know what I mean, it's not factored in, I'm sure you probably have trouble with that, not factored in the actual house thing. So points are not considered at all.
Points are not known, they're not considered.
Can you tell us the average age of a house
I do not know that statistic.
and can you tell us, and I have only 3 more questions, has the council been given information as to what this increase will produce in actual dollars as it relates to the, or could you tell me what a mill produce after this increase? I don't know
Well,
what
last year's mill was approximately $500,000.
500,000 per mill?
We're only talking a 1.6% increase right
About the
now,
500,000?
so it would not be very much more than that,
So it won't generate that much more money to the budget?
correct?
And last but not least, I noticed you used the word poverty. I know they used to use the word hardship. Is there a difference
The
in the law?
law states poverty.
It does. When the individuals are asked to fill out those forms, senior citizens that get quite deep into their personal business, does that have to be filled out, or
Absolutely.
is that confidential information? Because the Board of Review minutes are subject to the Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information Act, and I often wondered about, now that they require that. I think it used to be verbal, basically, didn't it, where they used to just verbalize your hardship.
Not since I've been on.
Not since you've been on it quite a while.
Unless for a lot of financial
Is
statements.
there any way for the council to protect that particular
No.
information?
It's governed by state law, Jim.
you can't.
You gotta meet state,
It's quite probing, Mr. Mayor.
understand?
Now, the answer to that, Jim, because you're asking that, is to protect the rest of the community from people just coming in and stating their case and not proving their case. We want to make sure that the rest of the taxpayers are protected as well, and therefore we ask that people give out a lot of information, but it's only fair. If you're asking to have your taxes forgiven and you are hiding something, then shame on you.
If they show you that they're on Social Security, and Mrs. Pauser, I think, indicated, what's the 3%?
1.3
Of fixed
increase.
income, that doesn't really carry enough money to pay their increase in the taxes. I mean, is that just given the weight, the fact that they are seniors, the fact that they are on Social Security?
That's not enough, Jim. You have to show your whole financial information. You have to show what assets you have, if you have other sources of income. A lot of people have second pensions. They don't just have Social Security. There are a lot of people, on the other hand, that I'm absolutely amazed at the number of people that are just earning about $6,000 a year, and that's very unfortunate. We try and help the Board of Review tries to help those people out. I don't have the power to do that. Only they have that power.
Isn't there some kind of circuit breaker in the state taxes to help in that kind of situation?
Yes, there is. The state allows you, you're supposed to be expected to pay about 3.5% of your income towards your property tax, and the state circuit breaker does adjust for that. But as time moves along and we get further and further up the road with these things, it's not providing as much equity as it did when it first started out.
Thank you. My last question is, as far as new construction is concerned in manufactured housing, I noticed that the city is, how is that treated? Because it is manufactured housing is different than stick housing or something built. I mean, it's really just carried in on the foundation. I mean, how is that treated in relationship to the assessment?
We have tables to handle the different areas, and they're basically based on whatever the table gives us for that. Then they're compared. Everything is the same as everything else.
New construction
Yes.
is separated out?
Every new home, whether it's stick-built or manufactured housing, is priced out individually.
Oh, I see.
Sales price is what they use, what they sell.
So that's not
Well,
factored in?
it's priced out based on tables, and hopefully that reflects the sales price.
Well, the only thing I'm wondering about is the recording time from the county. I'm just curious. Are they doing it faster now?
No.
The sales?
The recorded sales are not improving any, but the time period we're dealing with ended in March of 1998, so that's not a problem in this particular case. I don't know. Interestingly enough, the sales dropped off drastically last winter, and we had the smallest quarter of the 8 quarters we looked at was the winter quarter of 1998. But that wasn't a recording problem that I know of.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments, questions for the assessor?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just to clear up Mr. Netter's first question, Jim, you mentioned about the neighborhoods, and
Yes, sir.
just from the memo we had in the conversation with Mr. Zuck a few weeks ago, the way I read it and the way Ed has explained it is that the county gave us a percentage and said, when you mentioned neighborhood, they looked at us as the city of Wayne or the neighborhood of Wayne.
Okay.
And said your assessments have gone up on the average of, according to the memo, 9.1%. We as a council 6 years ago decided instead of giving every home in the city a 9.1% increase, it was only fair to break it down into neighborhoods because some neighborhoods were seeing more growth, some were seeing less growth. And based on the difference in numbers you see on the board up there, it's been like that since I've sat up here, where if a neighborhood didn't increase, they shouldn't get a tax increase. And that's what was, really a stressing point on this council, was that we do not want to see a neighborhood where the sales were adequate based on the SEV getting a 3 or 4 or 9.1% tax, assessment increase. So that's what the county came to us and said, this is your percentage, and you divvy it up however you see fit based upon your sales. And I believe some communities are still spreading it across the board
Yes.
to everyone based upon what the county tells them. And I believe the fairest way, and the council has in the past, is to divide it by neighborhood and use those sales as the determining factor.
Well, the council's to be commended because they're doing it the hard way.
Right.
And yet,
A lot of work involved, but
yes, it is.
the output is worth it.
You're really to be commended in the Board of Review for undertaking it that way, because as you said, a lot of them spread it across.
Right.
And you're to be commended because you try to be fair to every different section of your city based on reality, and not have seniors losing homes and all that kind of stuff that used to happen years ago. So I commend you on that.
Thank you, Jim.
And we
I
all
think
want
it should go to Mr. Rockefeller, not council. He does all the work.
Well,
That's what I said.
Council authorized them to do it this way.
This is the guy that does the work.
Yeah, well, he works for you, gentlemen and ladies.
But we appreciate his accuracy. We've had a couple of spots occasionally, but usually he's 99.9% right. So he's a good assessor. We're proud to have him here.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, we'll motion to order to adjourn, or do we need to act on this now? or-
There's no
You don't need
action.
to add, Mayor, it's just a FYI.
Joey?
I just had one comment. Mr. Rockefeller, I wanted to thank you for the presentation. It's very detailed, and I appreciate the large print. It's very easy to read. And as I was going through the sales, I noticed the same thing that Councilman Dickerson did with the sales, some being larger. What we're doing here is a mass appraisal, isn't that right?
Yes.
So it is difficult for all those numbers to come in right where you want them to, even in a whole subdivision. When all the
It is
houses are
very
the same, it
difficult.
is difficult, and I think you did a really good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's from one of your cohorts, so motion's in order to adjourn.
So move.
And we'll start at 8 o'clock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Toss it on top.
First item on your agenda is approval of city council minutes for the regular meeting of January 19th.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Yes.
at the end, when there was a vote to go to that closed session, and you interrupted me with your hammer, I just wanted to say that along with the lawsuit that Mr. Clark had sent me, he also sent me that he didn't have time to completely research the issue, and that's why I felt that I couldn't go in.
Okay, thank you. Any other
Just
comments?
so the record is clear, there is no doubt in my opinion that the city council had for validation to go to a closed session. I gave her the one case that came to mind quickly and didn't research beyond that because the case is so clear that it allows the city council to go to a closed session.
Thank you.
Is Councilwoman Hauser asking for a correction in these minutes?
No, because I didn't get a chance to say it, because I was interrupted by the mayor's little hammer there.
Thank you.
That was
And I
inadvertent.
would appreciate it in the future if, I have a right to speak up here, and I don't think I should be interrupted by that hammer.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And the chair will use the hammer as necessary.
Next item on your agenda is presentations. First is presentation of the 1998 Employee Suggestion Award Board Grand Award.
Mr. John Rudd with us, 16-year veteran with the DPW. Would you come up front here? How you doing?
Real good, thank you.
Man,
Some of them.
this is the grand award for our employee suggestion board. The city of Wayne has had this for a number of years. A lot of communities are talking about them, but we have actually established and have it ongoing. And we've gotten just great cooperation from our employees. They have brought out improvements for this community. And this is the grand winner. And we had a luncheon last week, I believe it was. And the other winners were given, but the grand winner comes to the council meeting. And you enjoy all this. If you would, John, just tell them your suggestion, and then we'll give you a check.
I suggested that we install surge protectors in all the city buildings to protect our delicate electronic equipment that we're now installing, the computers and the printers and fax machines.
And everything is going to be 2008 compliant.
Of course.
John, there's $200, and I know you and the family will enjoy it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Congratulations, and we'll give you a plaque here, too. Right there. Do you have the camera?
The Community Development Department camera failed the performance test with this right before the meeting, but the fire chief has indicated that the fire department will bring one over if Mr. Rudd and his family don't mind waiting for a few minutes. We'd very much like to get a picture.
Can you stay, John? They're debating. They're debating whether they can spend the money that quick. You can stay with us a couple minutes. We appreciate it. We'll take your picture, and if not, we'll arrange it later.
So I guess at that time.
No, you get to do it on company time tomorrow.
Next is a request to adopt a resolution honoring the 40th anniversary of the Wayne Civitan Club. So moved.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Yeah. I think we'll just go with the, I'd like to mention just a few of the activities that the Wayne Civitan Club has participated in over the years. Each year, the Wayne Civitan Club sponsors the following Parks and Recreation programs: Wayne Winterfest, who was just completed, the Marshmallow Drop in spring, the Wayne Wheel Fest, our annual festival, Halloween Walk, and they've adopted the Civitan Park, which is, most people know, is on Glenwood. They've donated Atwood Park, the Civitan Trail, and they've sponsored Planet Playscape. Other community involvement includes the Special Olympics, Wayne Public Library, and the Civitan Park Summer Picnic. And we have with us this evening Mark Danny. I appreciate if you come up and give you a resolution. Thanks for all the work and all the
We're good at our birthday party coming up. We're going to celebrate the 10th of February.
10th of February, yes. Where at?
Fellows Creek?
At Fellows Creek.
Yeah.
Everybody be aware that they're going to be out there.
We'll be there.
Hard workers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Mr. Danny, if you wouldn't mind waiting for the camera to arrive, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Would you mind?
Sure, no
Thank
problem.
you.
I can do that.
Next item on your agenda is bid awards. Consideration of bid award for photo imaging equipment for the police department to be paid from the equipment rental budget and a local law enforcement block grant.
Move approval for Public Sector Products Incorporated out of IADA for $31,525.
Support. Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Consideration of bid award for an AutoCAD system plotter for the Building and Engineering Department to be paid from the Water and Sewer budget.
Move approval for the only bid Sterling Systems, Madison Heights, $2,174.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next is business licenses and permits. Application for renewal of license to operate 2 mechanical or electronic amusement devices at 112 Farm.
Move approval.
Support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Application for renewal of license to operate 1 billiard table at Flanagan's Pub and Grub.
Move approval. Support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Application for a private property vending permit for Lisa Huff to sell Valentine's Day flowers February 12th through the 14th.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Comments from persons in the audience on matters not covered by the council agenda. Yes. Evening.
Hi. I'm back again to talk to you about the nursing home and the Michigan campaign for quality care. I presented the literature to you before, and I do have some for anyone in the audience that wants it. We're a statewide campaign that has went together to bring better care for our residents in nursing homes. Several of you have worked with me on the Wayne Total Nursing Home, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Kitty is also here, and we're doing things that we have conference calling once a month with as far away as Marquette. So this group is building really quick. And CBC, Citizens for Better Care, and Michigan Protection Advocacy Agency have both been working with us. We have new members continuously. There's quite a few of us here tonight because we just came from our residential family council meeting. We want to improve the standards of care for nursing homes, strengthen and increase the frequency of state inspections, increase high-quality care choices and competition, provide consumers with opportunities to learn about quality and services at existing facilities, and promote care practices and approaches that improve nursing home residents' daily lives. We're working to get a platform together. We're going to be testifying in front of a task force that is being put together right now. We're working very closely with Tom Kelly, and we do appreciate the letter that you sent to us with your support for that. And Lauren Bennett is working with it, and there's several other legislators that are working on it. We're hoping that this task force will be in place very soon and that we can start getting things from all over the state of Michigan and testifying in front of them about nursing homes. Several of us have also been in contact with federal nursing home things that they're doing and have given statements for that. Joey just spent a few hours at my mom's nursing home. I don't want to be kind of like sarcastic, but at the average of $117 a day for a 4-bedroom that allows my mother a bed, a nightstand, a part of a closet, and it's supposed to be her meals. And then there is supposed to be, above that is of course your medication and things like that. All we really want for our families is a clean place to sleep. We don't want satin curtains and satin sheets and lace curtains. We don't want filet mignon. But as Joey saw, we want food that they can eat. I think you'd be better to probably tell tonight because they were licking the food off of the toast. She couldn't even cut it. She tried to that night. We appreciate her coming in. Al has been in. And we're willing to take any of you in at any time, except you don't want to go now because the nursing home is full of scabies and we are being fumigated. We've been fighting on this for several months. In fact, one of the families that are here, their mother has since passed away through the fight of her having scabies for the last several months. It was only opened up when some of the staff caught them and they were able to start getting mouthy and tell the health department. So this is a continuous thing that goes on. Our pet stores are inspected once a month, our nursing homes once a year. They only receive points if it harms somebody. So even if the place is running away with roaches, they're not going to get the points and they're not going to get cited for it because it hasn't harmed somebody. It has to be proven that it's bodily harm or mental harm. We have a horrible staffing problem. The day of the storm, there was 5 staff there. My husband and I and a couple other the family members went in and worked all day. We went in and picked up staff and that finally after we were getting tired. But this is just not 5 people for 97 people isn't a lot. Do you want to ask something about the night you were in there? Because I know you were awfully upset about it.
It turned my stomach. I was so upset, and I only spent a couple hours there. The food, you couldn't cut it. And they did literally just lick it off the piece of toast, whatever it was.
It was creamed beef.
Creamed beef, yeah.
And peas, and water jello.
When Rosemary asked for another plate from the kitchen, they got them another plate. It looked appetizing to look at it. but when we smelled it, I wouldn't have eaten it myself. And if I'm not going to eat it myself, I don't think these people should be eating it either.
A lot of the residents don't even get their dinner. It sits on a counter somewhere on a tray, unless some of us are there, because they don't have family members or they don't have visitors. And it's proven through studies that the more visitors to a nursing home, the better the facility, because we're actually like the watchdogs of being there. And I know it, my mom's going to be 92, and I can't hope to really solve all these problems while she's still alive, but every one of us are going to be there probably someday, unless we go hang ourselves from a tree out there or something, so that we don't. But we need to improve this care. And it's not only like my mom that's going to be 92. My children could be in a car accident and have a closed head injury or something like that and have to be in a facility like this. We do have younger people in there, and they need to have at least food that they can eat, at least know that they have a bed that they can sleep in that's clean, that they're treated with respect. And that's one of the things that really lack in there, because they'll take and just pour syrup all over their food, eggs and everything, and they'll say, oh well, they don't know what they're eating anyways. And they do. Or they get ketchup all over it, and they say, well, they've probably forgotten they never liked ketchup. But they're not given the opportunity, and they have to eat it that way. Whatever's put in front of them, fights break out. They had rubber corned beef that we actually stretched, and they ate the bread. And if somebody put down one of their pieces of bread and somebody's grabbing it because they're hungry, then fights break out. That's their only way. It's like small children, you know. And when I taught preschool, I would see that. If somebody didn't think they had enough on their plate and wanted to steal somebody else's, then fights would break out. But these people don't know any better. And they're actually to a point, like I told Joey, one of the days that I came home watching this fight going on over food, there was dogs out on the street fighting over garbage. And I don't want to lose it now because I lost it then. And I said, that's what we've got in this nursing home. And this is not what we want for our families. And being in the city of Wayne, we need to check into these. We need to be there. We need to see what's happening. There's a lot of people in there that all of you know. And we just need to get in there and see what's going on. We're there all the time, but I need to take some of you and Al's in. Al's been appalled at what's went on. Joey's been in there. And I'd like to see the rest of you go in, because I want to see Wayne's nursing homes come up. We don't want another one closed, but that's where we're headed. And that's where it's going to end up, because now we're going to the state on everything. And Joey has agreed that any of our complaints were to have copied to her. So has Al, and so has Elaine G. Hart, Tom Kelly, Lauren Bennett, and now Jennifer Graham Holm is working with me on it too in her office. And they want to see much better. So this campaign, we need all of you to get involved, even if you can only come to one meeting every 3-4 months or something, or just give us a letter of your support that we're in the right direction. Because, like I said before, we'll probably be the last one there out of all of us.
You never know. He gets hard-headed every now.
We all might end up as roommates there real quick, you know. And we've just come from a family meeting where we're working as positively as we can with the nursing home to get better things. I mean, the food and the cleanliness and that is a major thing, but we're picking up pills off the floor. We're picking up vials of medicine. The care is not given to these people. Bed sores, things like that, they're just ignored. And it needs to shape up throughout the whole United States, but let's try and work on Wayne, and let's use them, get them to improve and use them for the model for the program that's going to be coming out. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see our council be the models that's setting the example for backing this.
I'd like to mention...
Kitty, do you have anything to add?
I'd like to mention some of the problems we face on a visited place, and I see a lot of short-term solution. You tell them the meal, it's bad. They go to the kitchen and bring better one, but it's for one day. The long-term solution for that problem is to have qualified people to serve the senior citizen. Because if you go to the hospital and you have well-trained and qualified nurse, she will help and do her job in the right way. You go to the nursing home, you see people don't know anything about the drugs. They didn't know anything about cooking. And when they get educated, they're not being paid enough by the industry. They go and seek jobs somewhere else. So they need qualified people, and they need to boost to pay for those people for them to stay on the job. So it's a problem caused by the greed of the industry. I don't want to mention name. There's some facility collect around $8 million from the state of Michigan, Medicare and Medicaid, and their total expense in 1 year was less than $3 million. It's a state record. You could see those things. I mean, they need to really educate their employees, provide them with seminar, with the proper equipment. There's some lady sitting on a chair that just, the worker doesn't have the power to raise her up. She doesn't have any mechanical equipment to help that lady to stand up. And she can't pick her up by herself. You know, the problem is the state of Michigan should put a qualification for those jobs and special education and good pay for those people to take care of those senior citizens. Until they do so, I think we're going to have the problem.
Until they do surprise visits, too. They usually notify them. And one Saturday, since I was here, I was in at the nursing home. Things were falling apart. Everything was going crazy. I went to go ask who was in charge that day. After being there for a couple hours, there was fights going on in the dining room. Staff was screaming, if everybody in here doesn't shut up, and some foul language. And I went to ask, I asked 7 people who was in charge that day. They all shrugged. One ran me down with a cart. At the same time, there was a lady standing there at the desk, and she was asking right after me, who's in charge, who's in charge. And I looked at her and I said, I don't know whether you're a relative or what, I've never seen you here before, but if you don't know by now, this place just goes to on Saturdays and Sundays. She said, I can see that. I'm from the state. I said, oh, thank God, we've gotten a surprise visit. It's all falling into place. They're going to see all this. She's writing page after page after page. Called in the director who lives in Ohio. Called in the assistant director or the director of nursing and the assistant director of nursing, all these heads and everything. So it took them quite a while to come in. So she was in there for about 2.5 hours. Just before the director got in, some of the department heads were in. As I came down the hallway, she says, she says, I got to give you the hotline number. She said, I'm in the wrong building. I can't do anything about any of this. I said, excuse me? I said, I'm supposed to be in the back building. Call the hotline and start listing all the stuff that's going on. I said, that's almost like a policeman being on one side of the street, me being on the other side being robbed and beaten and all this, and he says, hey, call 911, that's not my beat. She walked out of there with papers and papers and papers. She said, it's atrocious. Call the hotline. And it doesn't get you anywhere. The complaint that we put in last August will go to court again March 5th. It's been put off so long. By then, the resident could be dead. That's happened in the case of Art and George's mom. They have fought for so long, and when they thought they were finally going to get something done, she passed away. And they're still working with us because it's like a tribute to their mom. They want better for these people too. But this is what happens with the state. Our state does not inspect these nursing homes properly. When we've called on complaints, they treat you like you've called the nursing home and told them that you want them to pay for your family's care for the next year free of charge. The state does not respect the residents or the residents' families. They are right there in the nursing home's hip pocket. We are the largest corporation in the state of Michigan, Tender Care. That's a shame that they have to make their money by taking away from the residents. I have no problem with them making a large amount of money. Everybody's in business. That's their place to be there. But let's not cheat out our people in there who can't speak for themselves. And it is a shame because Joey knows there's so many people. She saw Catherine, who we kind of take under wing, and there's a lot of residents that we do. And just for you to go in and say hi to them means an awful lot to them. Joy found that. She talked to a lot of them. Al found that in there. So if some of you just pick up the phone and call me, I'll take you in there. I'd like to take you in at dinner time. And Joey actually was in on a good night. She was in on a very, very good night. But a lot of our residents aren't getting changed. And unless you're there 3 or 4 times a day, you don't know it. If you go in once a day, or you go in once every couple days, and everything looks fine at that time, because they usually set and they know what time you're coming in. But if you go quite often or just pop in, Lauren Bennett has been popping in regularly. They've even tried to stop them going in the building by sending them to the back building. So we need your help.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rosemary, why don't you give your phone number? You're on cable, and not only
That's right. There isn't anybody in Wayne that doesn't have my phone
And let
number because
everybody-
I'm past president of Civitan, and now Dick can't find me at the next meeting. That's got to be a little joke. 734-595-6558, and it's Rose Miller. So we'd
Thank
like
you.
you to all get involved in this campaign. You don't have to have anyone in a nursing home. You just have to care. Donna, could you ask?
Yes, I wanted to mention something there. I've had my mom in a nursing home for a number of years. It's not a happy situation. But I find that by being there, I can keep things pretty much under control. There are times that I'm not too happy about it, but I deal with it. I go to the administrator. And so far, she works with me, and so do the nurses and the other personnel. I don't know what the situation is like where you are.
We have a new administrator, and they've now put us senior administrators.
But I know that those people who work there, the aides, most of them that I know work very, very hard. I would not want their job. I don't think I could handle it, emotionally or physically. And I have to give them a great deal of credit. Now again, I don't know what the people are who work at this particular facility, because I've not been there. But I know where my mom is, that they're good, caring people. Are there some bad ones in there? Sure there are. But anything I've been involved in, there have been some people that are capable and some that aren't. But they're weeded out and they're gone. So I think what the group is attempting to do is very laudable. I think that things need to be taken care of as far as nursing homes are concerned. And the main thing, though, is that anyone who has someone in a nursing home needs to be there.
That's true. A lot of our staff is good there, but we deal with mainly pool. We have a lot of absenteeism, and we have a lot of pool staff, and like tonight, there's 2 nurses for the whole facility.
Like Mayor Pro Tem said, of course, I'm going through the same thing with my mother. And
I know that.
And I have 2 sisters, and so it's helpful. Usually one of us will do, but it is ongoing, and there's difficulties in every facility, not as terrific as we're running into here.
Well, yes, there is, but a lot of them, there's a lot worse.
Oh.
When I was in court to go guardian over my mom, I was told that she was in one of the better of the worst.
The better of the worst.
The better of the worst. And I was told by the attorney then that there are no good nursing homes unless you go into private pay. And of course, if you go into private pay, which several of these people in here have, and they've extinguished all their money, then they go on to the Medicaid. We've been through that. We've all been down that road. But a private pay nursing home, we're talking quite a bit of money in that it's very small, and they even have problems. So Edie from Citizens for Better Care was coming tonight, but she's been in meetings all day, so we excused her from coming. But if we can get the help, and if you just, even if you just come over there just for a little while and visit, and really, I could take you to a lot of other nursing homes that we're working on, and Kitty knows that. A couple of them have been closed from taking admissions, and so we're not just working with our nursing home here, but we want to see Wayne's improve. That's why we're at Wayne City Council, because we live in the best and we want to have the best.
Thank you. Kitty, any other comments?
I guess the thing that I would like to say is, I had both parents at Vinoy. We all know what happened to Vinoy. What a horrible thing for our city to have notoriety, because we had such a crummy nursing home that the state, first of all, didn't listen to families for the 5 years that I was involved to try and improve things, other than to finally come in and say, well, we're going to pull all your money, and the owner closed up shop. Many of our residents moved down to Rosie's place. And when we talked to the people at the state, in particular our nursing director, who allowed one gentleman who weighed about 100 pounds to go down to 54 pounds, he was the first resident moved out to the hospital, she's still practicing at another facility. And when we continually ask the state, why isn't her license pulled? They don't answer us. So I guess as representative for the Michigan campaign, I know that facilities run under the rigors of the state, but whatever the city can do to make them toe a little bit of a line or be a little bit accountable or support us so that we can get enough steam to make people answer us, we need that. I've lost both my parents now. The changes that we make aren't going to help both my folks. Other people have lost theirs. It's not going to make a difference, but we're so committed that this shouldn't happen to anyone. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. So, and the things that led to our closure, it's exactly what Rose has got now. Same thing. And I certainly don't want to see Wayne in the news again for the same reason.
Our senior director did make a comment before he left tonight. He said he'll do, this is the first time he's met with us because he just took this position January 4th, I think he said. But he's going to be over all 3 buildings and they'll still have the directors. That he would rather work with us than see Wayne City Council back in there and state representatives and senators back in there. So he's going to do his darndest, he said, to work with us. But that's all the more reason to make yourselves known and make yourself known that you're in there and that you're watching what's going on. Because for some reason, he wasn't too happy that we were coming here tonight when we left our meeting. So please give me a call. Joey knows I need to get along with Al does. Most of you guys, you know me so long.
As we try to get our information together to give to legislators, because we feel it's real important to not say, we have problems.
Right.
We're trying to come up with a platform that says we have problems, and here is how other states have solved their problems. It would be nice if we could be one of the facilities or one of the cities like Illinois and Texas, some of the other states we're looking at, that have modeled situations, and we could do the same. And that's, I guess, our long-term goal, right, Rose?
Yeah, I think so. Instead of making the news that Illinois closed and this is how Wayne made the news, let's try to go in the opposite direction and say, okay, Illinois closed, but look what we're doing now. We're being a watchdog over our nursing homes, and we're going to make sure that these residents are taken care of and do the best we can. I know you can't supersede the state and go in and do things. We're aware of that. But just your presence there. They knew that Joey was there the other night. They know that Al's there. That does make a big difference because they don't know when you're going to come in, so they can't change the menus and give them a real good dinner that day, although we'd like to tell them so that our families would get a nice dinner. So just please give me a call, and if there's anyone else out there that wants to go, and if anybody wants these flyers on Michigan Campaign for Quality Care or want to be part of it, please give us a call.
Don't you have a meeting coming up shortly?
Yes, the 15th.
You want to announce that meeting?
The 15th at the RISA building, right at Vinoy and, or Howe Road and Van Born, and it's at 5:30, and it'll be a conference calling.
Which room?
Annex room 2.
Annex room 2.
It's at the back, it's not at the one right by,
You go in off Van Born, but go back to...
right, go back towards the north.
Thank you, we appreciate all the work you're doing, and
We'll
if you would
keep
keep
you
us posted on
We will.
programs in other communities, let us know. I know this council is very interested in doing what we need to do.
Marquette has had a great big, like forum where they've had, how many did they have in their city? Hundreds of people came in, and their state representatives and that came in, and they did a whole big thing. So they're kind of doing, I guess they're going to be going to the state and different places like that and holding rallies. And we're hoping to be included in on those, and they'll be coming down to help us out.
And make sure you keep any announcements that you want on the cable, make sure we get those on for people to watch.
Good.
Yes, in the back?
I agree with what Rose is saying, and also with Kitty. Kitty spoke over at our, the West End Democratic. Didn't you, Kitty? Yes. And I know I've come in contact with Nightingale out on Newburgh Road, and I go and visit Camelot right now on Ann Arbor Trail at least once a month, and sometimes twice. I'm visiting a 92-year-old over there, a real good Italian lady that had to be put there by her. And what they did when our aunt was in the Nightingale, the way they collected their money was she had a pension, she had a Social Security from her husband. It doesn't matter how much money you got, they take everything you've got except $30 for personal care. You're not treated a bit different. And I can remember one occasion, even, they've got alarms on the doors, and one guy got out, he learned how to trigger to get out on Newburgh Road. Now, when I go into Camelot, they've got an alarm. When we come in the back door off the parking lot, we know what to punch to get in. But she complains about her meals, but I'll have to say that she is kept clean. But you can see a big difference when you walk in there. I can go to and they've got a lot of people that work there from Detroit because they say it's better to come out here. You can get a little bit more pay than in Detroit to work. And it's a shame what they get paid. I think if they got paid more, you might have better help. The pay is terrible. Some of the help is very good, but some of them don't care because they will even catch their own help and say, get on the ball. It does take 2, the minimum, to move these people. Sometimes I've seen them take 3 to move this friend of mine that I go see there. She can't even be transported in a normal wheelchair. She's like slid down in a chair because she's all frozen up with, and it's a shame how they have to live there. But they're improving because they've had a lot of state help in there starting to check them out. People have been complaining, and I agree with her. The more you get in there, the better we're going to see it. Because I go in there quite frequently, and if I see something wrong, I go to them. And we caught the state in there and checking up, and they want to know. And I hope they follow through, because I was really sad to hear some of the things that happened here in our Wayne one when they closed it down. And then now she's telling me about the other one. That's a crime. It's really bad. And I feel sorry for those, because we've had people that have been in them, and they're gone too. And if we can make it better, because we may be there someday ourselves. You never know, Rose.
We have a family member here that can tell you about alarms. Her family got out of the nursing home and was found at Henry Ruff and Van Born. Is how far
Same
they
facility?
got. The same facility. And it's a shame. With an alarm. We can be in there. You were in there the night you heard the alarm going off. Did anyone run to the door? No. They're gone. You know, it just the time. So the alarms mean nothing.
It just happened, Rose, we had somebody out in the parking lot grab the guy because he was heading for the street out in
Yeah,
Newburgh.
we've done that several times.
Yeah.
We watched
And finally they started watching the front. This was their front door.
Yeah.
Yes, it.
I've heard a lot of things said tonight, and what my curiosity is aroused is what can the city do to help this situation? Can they draft a resolution? Do they have any legal recourse to enforce whatever codes that are necessary? And then the other thing that I've heard is she's asked for the city council's presence. Is that something that takes
A
closure on, yeah, I'll be there, or I'll see you, or whatever, and, what can we do to help this situation?
I think from what, we're doing all we can as a city and under the state law.
Which is what?
We do our normal type inspections, and that's not their difficulty. The difficulty, as you heard, is these other matters that gets right down to care.
She has the committee that meets, and I assume that they're meeting with state legislatures who have control over this stuff.
Right.
Can't the city draft a resolution stating their...
We've already done that.
Has it already been done?
Yeah, we've already did that. But, and we all stand ready to be at any, a meeting or anything to support.
Donna has been to one of the meetings, Joey has been attending the meetings.
I've attended.
And you were to them in the beginning. We need some of the other ones to get into the nursing home and actually see what's going on, and then go to some of these meetings to hear some of the things that are taking place. Because we are working on this Thursday night, we have a platform meeting that will be presenting so that we can get it off to the legislators.
They're in the planning stages right now, strategy to move this effort, and we're going to join in with them.
All out to all
When they get the strategy drafted, we're going to work with them. Anything they need, we're going to help them.
That's what I mentioned, that's why I asked.
Right, that's
The difficulty, Mr. McMurray, is the city, as Ms. Miller pointed out, Ms. Mina pointed out, the city has no authority relative to nursing homes, none whatsoever. They're completely under the jurisdiction of the state of Michigan. They happen to be in this community as they are in communities all across the state, but their inspection of those homes is done by the state. We have no authority in those buildings, other than the council using their political authority or their advocacy. That's the only authority they have. We have no authority to inspect those buildings.
But that means a lot, and I thank you for inviting me back.
If there was a severe fire protection problem or severe security police matter problem, we would deal with it regardless of whether we had the authority or not. We got a problem, we're going to deal with it.
And they came through when all the sewers broke. The whole city came out and helped us out with the fumes in there and everything, because the residents were left with the fumes and they were flushing sewage outside, and the city did a great job. The fire department, everything came out and checked for toxic fumes. We got the place aired out. So I appreciate everything. We just need more people in there because it is upsetting them, like I said, to know that you people are aware and that you're coming in and seeing these things. And you again can, if you come in, like when Joey was in and saw this, she can complain to the state as a visitor of what was going on. And then it's just not like there's maybe 20 people that visit in our nursing home. And so it's the same people, of course, that are making complaints, because the same 20, the rest of the residents either don't have anybody or their family's out of town or they just don't. So complaints can be made by you, and you can also witness. Al's a witness to a couple things. He's a witness to this thing.
Also, it's fair to mention to Representative Kelly, Tom Kelly, working on the issue right now, and he's recommending to the state of Michigan to reorganize and have a special committee or task force to look into those problems. So he's in the process too.
One thing you mentioned, Rosemary, that I would suggest that all the citizens make a visit, whether you have anyone there or not, because there's, like Rosemary said, a lot of people in those nursing homes, they're the last of their family. Some of them have no family at all. And other than the other visitors who usually do ask how they're doing, but it'd be nice to make a visit, if it was only once a month, stop in and just say hello, and you'll be surprised at some of the knowledge and the experiences that are in these nursing homes. You can chat with some of those people. It's very good work. And we appreciate the whole committee and what you're doing, both here in Wayne and statewide. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask one question.
Yes.
That Rosemary alluded to. She indicated, and I understand some of this, coming out of the Veterans Hospital, and we have veterans that go through this. People wonder what happened to them after 6 months or a year. And what they don't think about is the real long-term veterans that the VFW come up and work with. And if you're healthy, you really don't give a thought very much until it happens to you or happens to someone you love. And then it really gets home. So I've lived it and I understand what you're saying. But what I like to understand is this. In this city, if we have individuals, and the legal term is competency for the senior citizens. I mean, if these individuals are 70, 80 years old and beyond, and she indicated or described a situation where food was left, witnessed by Councilman Lentini, that was virtually, you said you would eat it.
I said I wouldn't.
And you're aware of all your senses.
Yeah.
And these people are in a state, don't they need protection? And furthermore, isn't it criminal to deny them food or to present them with food? Isn't that a criminal matter? And how can you be exempt because it's a state property? I wasn't aware that murder could occur in a nursing home and somehow they were exempt. Could you explain that to me? If you deny them food, let me just make myself clear. If they land there and they can't cook the food themselves, they can't feed themselves, and someone's presenting them with food that is far beyond anything that they would need to meet their basic needs, so they're not sustaining life. And if you're not sustaining life, you're no different than Jack Kevorkian or some other less known human being, because what do you put on the death certificate? I mean, do you put natural causes when the fact of the matter is they were starved to death, or they were left in such a state where flies flew into their mouth and the cavities of their bodies, or they were left with sores and dead sores? Isn't that a matter of neglect, and isn't it criminal neglect since they're renting that space to live in, to lay in? She described a certain amount of square footage. That's their whole world. And yet we have a rental ordinance for houses. Shouldn't we include maybe that square footage in that ordinance? Shouldn't we demand that citizens in our community? I remember when Joe Lewis's wife died in this community. I remember when Joe Lewis's wife was on television, died right there in Illinois. And that's right, Joe Lewis. And if it were not for the fact that the people took an interest in her because of her fame, God only knows what might have happened with her. So if it could happen to Mrs. Lewis, God only knows what's happening to people, you understand, like you and I, who would get that age and mean nothing. Isn't there something criminal about that behavior? And shouldn't we look at that?
When there's criminal actions, police department do follow through.
Do the police get involved in denying
If there's a criminal situation, like I said, you respond to criminal situations.
The police have been called in several times for different things. You can't call them in for, like, the food that Joey saw them get, because it's like they were able to lick the sauce off.
So Wheels on Mills.
But Joey can follow the thing and make the complaint with us to the state. And then if she follows through with it, and Al follows through on the complaint we're working on, but like I said, the complaint that went in last August will not be heard until the beginning of March.
My last question, Mr. Mayor, is
by then someone could start with
this
that.
city has always been an advocate of the Meals on Wheels program. Couldn't that was, when I was on the Commission on Aging, that was such a wonderful program that we always looked to, that assured people who were shut in and what have you. I think Ms. Dombrowski's affiliated with that from the county. And I know one of the things she felt proud about, the fact that she knows certain individuals are getting a minimum amount of nourishment. Why are they exempt from getting the Meals on Wheels? I mean, the need is
regulations, they're providing the care and the food for these patients and get paid for it, but they're taking too much profit.
I see.
That's the problem. And that has to be a state regulation. There's other states where things are different.
$17 a day for isn't that the average, Georgia?
My God.
For, just for the room, plus
It's a
medical
large
care.
situation that's going to be growing, as everybody knows in this room. The largest population increase is in 80 and above. So this problem is just starting really to come out, and it's getting organized. The users, the consumers see the terrible conditions, that they're going to make an effort, and I think they'll make things happen because they're getting their strategy together, getting a plan organized, and they're going to go at it. And they better be listening.
There's
This
more
is a huge problem.
65-year-olds than there are teenagers now.
Right.
people over 65.
Well, we appreciate the information, but we need to move the agenda, and this was very
We
good.
appreciate your time. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Got the camera, Mr.
Oh,
Mayor.
got the camera.
Mr. Rogers, can we start with you? Is your family still in the building?
Yes.
Does anyone want 5 minutes to ask his family?
She's in the hallway, I can see her.
And Michael Bryant, we have you up front. Donna. I'd like to include you and John in the picture as well.
Tom Norwood?
And Tom Norwood.
Make it this perfectly clear with you, okay?
How's that work?
I follow directions well, just give them the right way.
I got 7 of them.
Could have turned around. Take one more.
Tomorrow afternoon.
This is fancy one. Nice.
You had one like that, didn't you?
Mr. Danny? Thanks for waiting. I'm impressed with your skill level.
Robert?
City attorney?
Yeah, try.
Okay. After that's a good one.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for waiting.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll move the agenda. Yes.
You mentioned Claude Berard, and,
Yes.
He was also the first recipient of the Friends People Helping People program.
Right.
And I had a chance to talk to his daughter at the funeral home, and Claude was really excited about the 53 people that were over there working on his house. And we are meeting on the 24th of this month to start this year's program. And we are looking for people that would suggest people that might want their home done in the same way that we did Claude Berard's. And we're also thinking of expanding it to single parents that might not be able to do it, might not have the funds to do it or whatever. So our kickoff meeting is the 24th of February.
And where's that going to be?
It's at City Hall, and you can call the Community Development Center at City Hall with nominations or the Senior Center. And the date is September 11th.
Thank you.
What time is it?
What time?
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Okay, thank you. Yes, in the back?
I'll just be quick with this. I've received the City of Lubbock, Texas Y2K exercise tape and the whole script here that they went through the whole thing. Everybody has to see this video. This is a must-see. If you don't know anything about it, if you know something about it, you got to see it.
Well, we have ordered that already.
Okay, I talked to Bob.
And then we'll make sure we get it on TV.
You're going to get it on cable? Okay, because I can say it costs $20 to get, but if anyone wants to get with me after this, all they got to do is give me a blank tape. I'll make a copy for free. That's it.
Yes, ma'am.
The meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, January 19th, you went to a closed meeting. Can you tell me what the topic was that you were discussing?
Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, they received a legal opinion from me. I rendered a legal opinion to the council.
Okay, so, no topic. Can you explain and give a definition, a legal definition of why the meeting was considered a closed meeting to the public?
The law allows opinions of attorneys is exempt from the Open Meetings Act, and therefore I could deliver an opinion. In fact, I delivered a written opinion to the city council, and during the closed session, I asked them whether or not they had any questions regarding the opinion that I delivered. They are not allowed to work towards a conclusion in any closed session. The city council can only take action at an open meeting, a public meeting, such as we have tonight. However, if I render a legal opinion and they have questions about it, I can answer those questions regarding my opinion, and that was the purpose of that meeting.
My other question is, to the mayor, I noticed in the Eyewitness News about the arrest at the, I think it was the Royal Oak Theater, and I was wondering, there were Westland police officers that were there, and there were also Canton. I was wondering if any of our past or present police officers were also involved in that.
I'm sure we would have read about it in the paper if there had been. I haven't heard anything of that, Chief, but anything,
I'm not aware of anyone there.
Well, we don't really hear anything about what goes on illegally in our city, like arrests or break-ins or anything like that. It's never in the paper, so for you to say that I would know about it because it would be in the paper, it just wouldn't be there.
well, how did the Westland officer and the Canton officers get in the paper?
They were put in there probably because they publish their things that go on in your city.
I don't believe that, Nancy, and I think you know better. Yes, Jim?
Mr. Mayor, probably don't need me to bring up the issue of the snow, but I would just like to publicly thank the fire department for coming out to Hickory Island subdivision and helping us in relationship to not only helping clear away the snow from the fire hydrants, but finding them. We thought we knew where they were for sure, but our maintenance people told us they were hard to find, and it was just good to see them out helping us make it easier and clearing it away and making sure that we had them all cleared away. And finding them is a real deal. I just don't know if you know it or not, but finding those hydrants, how tall are they? 36 inches? Was a real ordeal. Is that part of the snow emergency, I mean, to clear them away as soon as possible?
They have different levels of response. That's one of the levels when they can get to it. That's a very important item to have snow emergency clearing the hydrant. And we asked the citizens to help us in that regard because we couldn't do it all ourselves. A lot of citizens helped also. But the fire department and the DPW, everyone really did an outstanding job in this community.
Yeah, we thank you.
Just like to say a quick thank you to the Recreation Department. Jeff, you're here representing Recreation tonight, I believe. The Winterfest went well. I know my grandchildren enjoyed the activities, and I did too. And considering that you had venues all over the city, you did very, very well. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Young.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight I'm here to tell you that we do have a hearing coming up for the Parent Drain from Sassafras Trails, and it's going to be, yeah, I'll get the camera, but it's going to be the 10th, February 10th, and I'd like as many people to come as are able to get there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Most of the public is working, but that's the time, on the 10th of February in the Westland City Council chambers. And this will be finally a hearing about the vacating of the parent drain that goes through Sassafras Trails. I thank you very much for the time.
I have two quick comments. Don mentioned about recreation, and I just wanted to commend the recreation staff for the staging of Second City at stage 4. I think that's something I've received a lot of applause from the community about those types of activities. activities, professional performances coming into our community and utilizing it for the purpose of that. And I've received a lot of input from people stating they'd like to see more of that. And based on the attendance there, I think the attendance was pretty much a sellout. I didn't see many empty seats there. So I commend the staff that organized that, and I'm looking forward to it with my children for the Schoolhouse Rock coming up. Is it this month or next month?
March 11th.
March 11th. Again, another professional performance, and there's a lot of good comments about that performance and the upcoming performance of Schoolhouse Rock. And I think when we renovated the theater, this was one of the options that we wanted to pursue. And I'm glad that these are the types of things, and I hope we see more of them in the future. And the second issue is about the legal opinion for Mr. Clark. And just to touch on that, we've met dozens and dozens of times in closed session regarding legal opinions. And in layman's terms, some of those opinions were about lawsuits, settlements involving lawsuits, and just to show where Mr. Clark is right on the issue that we can't discuss a potential settlement of a lawsuit in an open meeting because we're not sure who's going to watch that, and Mr. Clark doesn't know who's in the audience or who's going to see it. So he may discuss a settlement with us or give his opinion whether or not that we accept a settlement based upon his professional job, or such as labor issues involving contracts with employees. We have labor attorneys that will render opinions to us that we may not want aired at this time when we're in negotiations. So the issue last on the 19th was not out of line of what we've done as a council throughout the years that I've sat up here, and I'm sure you've been, Mr. Mayor, for 20-something years as a fire chief and as a council person. And I just caution when people accuse us of an illegal meeting that you really examine what the topic is and the sensitivity of the issue. And Mr. Clark's given us good advice in the past, and just thinking about those two topics, knowing if he's going to give us an illegal opinion, sometimes it's best to do it that way so we're not basically showing our cards to potential persons that could benefit on an issue like that. So that's it.
If I may add, one of the things that's most important to the public is the right to know. That's what the Open Meetings Act is all about. After I have given an opinion to the council and after they have asked questions and gotten answers, if there is a need for them to make a decision, they come back in this room and they make it publicly 2 weeks or a month later. Our council knows that they cannot, in a closed section, act to a conclusion. They know they can only ask questions of me to gather more information and data. But at the conclusion of that meeting, when they leave, they know they have to come back in this room 2 weeks, a month, 2 months later, and publicly discuss and decide the issue. That's really important to you, and that's part of my responsibility as a city attorney, to make sure that when they go into a closed session, they do so only for the limited purposes that the law allows. And then when it comes time to make a decision, that they come back in this room and make it so the citizens and the folks who are present can hear them, talk about it, and vote on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just for clarity, am I to understand that once this happens, the minutes will show the amount of the proposed settlement or the accepted settlement, who received it, and why they received it?
It depends, Jim. What the City Council of Wayne did a number of years ago is they adopted by resolution some threshold levels regarding the disposing of lawsuits, if you will. And I don't recall them all off the top of my head, but there's a threshold level that the mayor and I can conclude. There's a threshold level that the mayor and I and one other member of our committee, and there's a threshold level that only the council can ultimately decide. I believe there's some conditions into this resolution about politically sensitive or community type lawsuits. Those kinds of things have to be discussed in public. As you probably are aware, the city is insured through the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority. And very often what happens is that the amounts of money involved are beyond, and I'll oversimplify it. In our sphere, we call it a retention. Most folks at home are familiar with the deductible. If the settlement is going to exceed our deductible, we basically release our retention, and Michigan Risk Management Association makes the decision regarding the settlement of the lawsuit. And so the larger ones are not aired publicly because it's not our decision anymore. Okay? We advise the council, and by we, I emphasize it's me, it would be the attorney that is hired by Michigan Risk Management Association to make a presentation to the council if the council needs to hear information so that they can be informed as to what's going on. But sometimes you won't hear the council talk about those, and it's because we've released our retention, and our insurance company, for lack of a better word, is disposing of the issue. The closed sessions involve other things too. I think Mr. Dickerson alluded to a couple of them. Employment negotiations, obviously direction that the staff is taking should be relayed to the council. Even though the council can't then direct the staff what to do, they need to be informed by the staff as to where the negotiations are. And then publicly, when the contract's approved, it's always done in this room, because this is where the council needs to come to make these decisions. And they may have gotten, the written documents about the settlement, just as we do in other issues, and they may have an interaction with Mr. English, whoever else, that particular night that's approved. But the most important thing, and I really want to emphasize this, is decisions are made in this room, not when we go to closed session.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, but I guess I've stood in this room as much as anybody in the city, and I don't recall seeing on this agenda 15,000. What's the deductible? Is it 5,000, 10,000? What is it?
Retention is 75,000.
75,000. So only when it goes past the threshold of $75,000 do it goes outside of your domain. It goes into the risk management.
And the other thing is the council has empowered this committee to make settlements up to 20,000.
But because the council undoubtedly...
You only have a limited area in between 20 and 75 that we would come back here publicly and do, because they've already authorized the expenditure through the committee of anything up to 20,000.
To the chair, but Mr. Clark, because the council has these 75,000 and lower as a contingency factor in the budget, because that must be set aside in the budget as a contingency factor, whether you use it or not. It has never been on the agenda, to my knowledge.
It is
10,000, 15,000, 20,000 for a specific person, for a specific thing.
In the budget, Mr. Netter, you'll find that it's one lump sum. Okay, it's not by person, because we don't know in any given year or time period whether or not a case will settle, whether or not we'll be sued. We don't know, but there is a line item in the budget that deals with this, and it's there every year. And Mr. Rockefeller makes a recommendation to the council as to what that dollar amount should be, and based upon our loss experiences, that line item is set each year.
Well, I'm just saying, as a citizen, I would love to see it more clear, demonstrated on the agenda. When this is taking place, so the council's voting on this, I would know that they're voting on something very much that came out of a closed session. Other than that, I really wouldn't know. There's no footnote on here that says previously discussed in closed session, so that I would have some kind of inkling that this was discussed in that way. And the agenda is not clear enough, and that's just something that I would like to bring. And I've noticed that before, Mr. Mayor, you changed, when you took over as mayor, you changed a lot of things. For instance, they used to just say buy 3 trucks. Didn't even have a dollar amount. You changed that.
Well, Jim, it wasn't just me. It was the administration and the council changed.
Well, John Zach changed it, but I remember when they didn't have any, I can go get you old agendas where they didn't have a dollar on there about the trucks. So the people on the audience had no idea per truck or per unit what those trucks were costing. The council would just vote to buy a Joe Blow truck from such and such thing.
We operate with more openness the better, and that's the way we've operated for 7 years, I'm in the 8th year now, and hopefully we'll continue. Sometimes it's taxing, but it's worth it. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move the agenda.
Next item is appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Recommendation from Mayor Warfield to appoint Robin Moore of Annapolis Avenue to the Local Officers Compensation Commission to fill the unexpired term of Charles West to October 2000. So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Reappointment of the following to the Wayne County Community Development Block Grant Program Advisory Council to February 2000. Councilman Al Haddis as delegate.
Move approval.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Councilman Robert Dickerson, first alternate.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Councilwoman Josephine Lentini as the second alternate.
Move approval.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Reappointment of Debbie Manns to the county's program housing and planning committees. I'm sorry.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Appointment of Helen Tomlin, David Williams, and Rupert Bud Hilliard to the 1999 Board of Review.
So moved.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Two of those members were here earlier for our special meeting at 7 o'clock regarding the assessments. And that was, appreciate that they showed up for that. It will help in their committee work.
Next item is communications and reports. Memo from the city clerk concerning sample election ballots.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as you know, this was on the agenda at the last meeting. I asked it to be held over till tonight, but the clerk was on vacation. I hope you've had an opportunity to review the information she sent to you. She has some additional information to pass around this evening at her place. I guess what I'd like her to do is to give you a short synopsis of what she prepared, and then I guess we'll have some questions and comments about the matter if you wish tonight, or if you wish to ponder it some more. We can take it up at a later meeting, but we would like to give you a short presentation on the research that she and her staff conducted since this was discussed last night.
Okay.
It was at your November 4th council meeting that Jim Netter presented his suggestion to you that you send sample ballots to all Wayne voters. He made the comment that the city of Detroit does this as well as other communities. And I have given you a copy of what the city of Detroit is sending out. They've been doing this for more than 10 years now, sending it to every household. It is bound, but because I photocopied it, it's loose pages, so you kind of lose something in the presentation there. As far as other communities that Mr. Netter alluded to, perhaps when I'm done he can explain what cities those are. My staff contacted Westland, Garden City, Inkster, Romulus, and Canton, and none of those communities are sending anything out and never have. I did state in my memo that the city of Inkster was providing in their office information from the League of Women Voters, but I talked to the city clerk of Inkster, Delphine Oden, and in actuality they did not arrange for that. Delphine just walked in the office one day and noticed that there was a stack of 25 or 30 brochures from the League of Women Voters on a table in the lobby, and she doesn't know where they came from. But I did talk to our representative at Doubleday and got some really conservative and very tentative costs. And what's before you from the city of Detroit is a 12-page booklet that they were recommending. He calls it a 4-page, but it would actually be 8 pages when you count each side of 2 large sheets of paper. And very conservatively, we would be talking about $2,000 for the printing, all depending on how much composition time is required. And then postage would be an additional probably $1,000 to $1,200. And if you want to do this, I would recommend that it be sent to each household. I need to point out that we do provide information of this type in several ways already. We have an advertisement in the newspaper. and we list all of the offices and proposals that are being voted on. We have the instructions for absentee voters that go out with the absentee ballots, but we hand these out to people that come in and ask for them because we get quite an abundance of them. And then we also have on the counter the sample ballot that people can come in and pick up, and those are always available about 7 to 10 days prior to an election. I don't know how many additional voters or how much increased voter activity there would be as a result of this kind of mailing. That would be your judgment. I think it would increase the cost of an election about 40 to 50%. For every election except local elections, all of the printing is done by the printer arranged for by the Wayne County Election Commission. But for local elections, we arrange all of our own printing.
Thank you. Do you have additional information?
You know, I really didn't have anything else to pass out to you. I mean, I just kind of brought show and tell things here.
Mr. Netter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and George for researching this item. It's a very important item. In relationship to the cities and townships that provide this information, you mentioned Inkster as an example, where the League of Women Voters come in out of Dearborn Heights. I believe that chapter is the one that supplies that. The city of Detroit, you mentioned that they do it. I'd just like to point out, for instance, in the city of Detroit, the last primary election, the voter turnout was astronomical. It was really high. What we're finding, for those of us who track elections, and I do it from a civil rights, forgive my granddaughter, perspective, is that what we're finding is that, you mentioned this for instance, a lot of people, you may be surprised, who go into a gymnasium where the precinct workers are and what have you, or they're standing in line, they can't leave the line to read it, and sometimes you come in, you have to turn around to read it. Occasionally in some places it might be on the side, depending on the distance to be able to read it. Depending on your eyesight, can you read it? What we found was that individuals that did get a sample instruction ballot in their homes were able to actually examine those issues, which are very complicated, recent issues. For instance, you had the right to die issue, which is a very complicated issue. They're talking about putting a death penalty on this November ballot. Serious, serious issues. Those issues, Sierra, please. Those issues take a lot of time. And what we're asking individuals to do is to come in there after standing in line or leaving their job or trying to get in between lunch hours and then get in that small space, if you will, and try to digest that information. And that's very difficult. And so what's happening is, particularly in general election, presidential elections, you have lines, and you have agitation with people who leave those lines, who says, this line's just too long, I'm not going to be able to make it. And so therefore, you're denying one citizen a vote. What Jackie Curry found out in her survey was, and what we found out in the civil rights community is, and we certainly encourage, and this council certainly supports that, any and every citizen to have the absolute given opportunity to vote. And that's exactly what this small cost is. The cost for someone, or 10% of your people not voting as a result of not having information or having wrong information, as in some cases. The great thing about doing this is it comes from an independent clerk. It's valid, it's official. You understand what I'm saying? And you know what the ballot is. If they're hearing something in the community or not, they can go and read it and have a valid instrument to look to. You also mentioned the availability of the ballots that are at your desks. From the hours of 8 to 4:30, needless to say, those hours conflict with work schedules. Probably as many of the individuals said right here at this council table. could not get to your office in time to get one of those. Unless they're a senior citizen, they would be mailed one. And if they don't feel they're really going to be out of town on voting day, they don't really feel right saying, I'm going to be out of town. I can't believe it. And yet, find out that they want to go and vote. Sometimes they love the atmosphere, they love going there, they love seeing what the signs are, they love talking to the poll workers. It's surprising to me, a lot of people enjoy that. So what I thought about, Mr. Mayor, is the fact that you had that tremendous, and you work directly with elections, turnout in this city, and it was a great effort in this country to encourage people to vote under the Voting Rights Act, which will expire, unfortunately, for minorities in this country in the year 2007. I don't know why that's true, but that's something I don't understand. That this is a small cost. And when this first came up, I happened to walk over to Councilman Dickerson, Pam Dombrowski, and just to throw it off and say, if the cost is not prohibitive, you see this as something that's feasible that we could do that would expedite elections and eliminate any and all confusion that might be as a result of people not having a ballot instrument to look at. Know who's on the ballot, know what the issues are on the ballot, circle who they want to vote for, if anyone, and take that with them and be prepared. You cannot take campaign literature into a voting place. So, any campaign, the inspectors will not allow you to bring them in there. So you can't have what someone give you at the polls and take it in there and vote with it.
Jim, that's not quite correct.
Well, that's what we've always been told.
You can't leave it in the voting booth, but you can take your own personal notes in to remind yourself of how you
Oh, I know when I was signing in, I say, Mr. Mayor, we appreciate you didn't take that in with it. So then I find myself trying to use a memory. But this has been allowed to be taken in with them and to be used. And I hope the council consider here tonight the $1,200. And surprisingly, I didn't know it was that low. It's a very small amount of money. We just got to talking about $75,000 threshold a moment ago that may be used in the budget or may not be used, may be justifiable, may not be justifiable. This is a far less than $75,000.
And I think $1,200 would be for postage.
What costs are we talking about, Madam Clerk?
Probably $2,000 to print.
$2,000? Well, I would ask that
$2,000 to $2,500.
I would ask that the council try it, and that would really see what it does for your numbers. Maybe try it for a couple elections and see what it does, and then that way we could be talking about some actual experiences and see what the citizens would say to you and what your response would be, and then you can make a more far-lefty determination. Thank you for letting me be heard, Mr. Mayor. And I say this, and I said this with no criticism of your office, Madam Clerk. I think you do a fine job. But, we can always help to do better if it will expedite voting and eliminate confusion. For that reason, I thank you, and I hope you support it.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I was just thinking of a suggestion. When we send out our newsletters to our fellow residents, if we could make a little suggestion in there and sort of work out a little survey to see how they feel about something like that. Would that be an easier way to go about it? Because I work on elections too, and we post things in the halls and in the various areas wherever we work, but like some people, they're in and out so quick that some of them don't read it. And I just thought, put a little survey or something, maybe that would help us to let the city know what the residents think about a situation like this, if it would help them out.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Freeman.
From an economical standpoint, a trial could be served in the next election with perhaps timing the mailing of our city update newsletter with some type of, quote, what Jim's using as a sample ballot on the back page, and perhaps residents could cut that out or however they want to, if they choose to use that. And that way we wouldn't see that $2,600 cost that Ms. Null talked about, yet give the idea some merit. And all I believe we'd have to do is just render the timing accurate with the election and just typesetting for a ballot to be placed on the back or back two pages of the update
and see how that goes for the first year.
Is that a motion? We're on the same wavelength. I was thinking the same.
Is that a motion? I'll make the motion if that's... Been moved? Supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. And we'll look for greater participation in this year's election.
We thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Letter from George Goodman, Executive Director of the Michigan Municipal League, announcing its legislative conference on March 17th.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council will be in contact with all of you relative to whether you wish to attend this meeting or not. And I would appreciate it very much if you'd give some consideration to the fact that this is the day after a council meeting. The council typically would meet on the third Tuesday of that month, March 16th. We have in the past met with our state legislators the night before the legislative conference, and that would conflict with the March 16th council meeting. So if you wish to meet with Senator Bennett and Representative Kelly, then we need to have some idea if you wish to hold a council meeting on March 15th, for instance, and we can make those arrangements. If you wish to stay with March 16th, however, we'll arrange for you to meet with Senator Bennett and Representative Kelly at another point. So we'll be communicating with you soon about this, and if you would have an opportunity to think about those issues, and let us know, and then we'll register those that wish to attend the conference and make the other arrangements as needed.
Very good. Without objection, receive note of file.
One thing?
Yes.
March 17th is St. Patrick's Day.
Yes. That's poor planning.
Memo from the fire chief and thank you letter from a resident regarding firefighter EMTs Ken Hines and Dave Wiley.
Could you read that, please?
Mrs. Davis has sent a greeting card which says, with warmest thanks, to give, to share, to show you care is to make life more special for others, and has added her personal note to EMS drivers that transported me to Annapolis Hospital. You made me feel like I was the only important person in the world. Thanks, Joanne Davis.
Thank you. Pass it on to the EMTs, please. Thank you.
Memo from the city assessor concerning the Board of Review schedule for 1999.
We just ask that you receive and file this, unless you have some questions or concerns about the schedule that Mr. Rothfelder discussed with you at your 7 o'clock meeting.
Without objection, receive note and file.
Letter from Maria Holmes, Manager of Corporate Affairs of Media One, regarding telecommunications regulation.
Before we get into that, we're going to play the video of that meeting when we had discussions with Media One.
Mr. Mayor, if we could, go ahead, Bob, that's good. Maria Holmes is sitting in the seat.
Maria Holmes is representing Media One.
Third row. We realize we've been here a while, but if this would, I think, help refresh all of your memories as to the questions that were asked by the council in October, when the council voted unanimously to transfer the franchise from Time Warner to Media One. And I think this will go to the issues that you raised at your first meeting in January when you talked about the rate increase. Maria's here actually for two issues, both item 6E and 6F on your agenda tonight.
Talk for another minute if you want, John.
No, please.
TV's got to reprogram the power loss or something.
Okay.
That's not enough for me.
Well,
enough for you?
The first item that's on the agenda is actually not to do with your comments from January. Maria is sending us a letter regarding telecommunications. And this is a matter that we would review and refer to the Cable Commission and to other staff for recommendation back to the council.
Without objection, receive, note, file, and refer. Took care of that one, Maria. How many thousand channels is that?
Tons lot.
Well, between the camera not working tonight and the television, we're hitting 0 for 2, staff. We'll discuss that one tomorrow.
Why don't we go on and move the agenda while we're setting that up?
Letter from State Senator Lauren Bennett concerning state and federal spending on local roads.
Please speak to that. What is it?
Mr. City Manager, you want to report on it?
Mr. Bennett has sent to the City Council, to the Mayor and Council, a spreadsheet in which it illustrates the increase in state and federal spending on local roads. If you'd like to have a copy of this and take a look at it, it lists by county, by community, the amount of money that is being spent to improve roads throughout the state of Michigan. And again, it's information that's in the public record. We ask the council receive and file it. And if you have any questions about it,
Just for some general information, that the 97 payment to Wayne was $770,167. The new one is proposed is $940,618, which is 22% increase over the previous year.
Can I ask one question? I don't know if you're able to answer it, Mr. Mayor. 275, and those of us who live in Wayne certainly use 275, was fixed before the election. And it seems in the last 30 or 60 days, the whole thing popped up. Are we going to see the same thing with the same fixing that they did on Michigan Avenue, is the question.
Well, the repair job on 275 was asphalt.
Oh.
That was a cap.
There was a cap put on there.
Didn't
The reconstruction of Michigan Avenue eastbound from the viaduct to almost Howe Road was a removal of the existing pavement, and a new concrete surface was put in place. So it was completely different than the work that was done on 275.
Sounds like that's what they have to do out there. Of course, a lot of cost. Yes.
I'd like to comment on one of those. I would take that letter I got from this guy. I wouldn't take it serious at all, because it doesn't mean nothing. He and his buddies sit over at the Research Center, October of '98, signed an education bill for $20 million for Wayne West Nine schools. That's a political movement. As of today, Wayne West Nine schools have not received one penny down. Not a dime. It's all a political movement. Like fixing 275, that was a mandate till after the election. That's all it was. It was election year. Those guys don't care. Now, I got sons in the trucking business. And I talked to John Inga personally about this. All trucks tear up the roads, but they pay all the taxes like you wouldn't believe. But they pay a lot of taxes. Everything they're going to move is a tax truckers. But the thing is, they pick and choose where they want to fix the roads at. If it's down our area, where we have the blue collar people, we may not have the votes. You forget about those. He goes up in the northern part of the state, the middle of the state, Hogan County, Long County, where all the votes are. And that's where he spends all the money fixing the roads. Not around here in this area. That's the difference. And we got to remember that, just like we had the nursing homes. That's a sham too. I've been dealing with all this for years. It's all promises, folks. You can't run a government or a city on promises. And that's what's been happening in Lansing the last 8 years.
This clip is from the MDOT, specifically line. So we're going to be looking for that money. It's going to be in our budget. They better be there.
I would down the wall, make sure they got our money we got coming. Because otherwise it's all promise. It means nothing.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Without objection, receive no file.
Letter from Congresswoman Lynn Rivers regarding the relocation of her office to Ypsilanti.
In short, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Representative Rivers closed her Wayne office and her Ann Arbor office and centralized them in a single office in the city of Ypsilanti. Her communication also includes a schedule wherein she is going to be holding, as she calls them, coffee hours in various communities within her district. The first one was held recently in Wayne, these run through February 16th, the last one being in Huron Township. So we wanted to pass this along to you, that you heard directly from her relative to her decision as to why she closed the two offices.
The new address is 301 West Michigan Avenue, Suite 400, Ypsilanti, and you can contact by telephone 734-485-3741, 485-3741, or by fax 734-485-4165, and that's open 8:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. And of course, she would, most people I think are on our mailing list. If not, you call there and you get on our mailing list for the coffees, round tables, town halls that she has throughout the year. Forum.
Does she?
Open house is the 19th of February. 4 to 7.
Does she state why this particular year she's not going to have an office in Wayne County?
What the deal is,
At all?
she says, Jim, is that they've consolidated the Wayne and the Ann Arbor office, and thereby improving at a single location, because some people in our area had to go to Ann Arbor to have some services. Now everyone, either the Ann Arbor people come to Ipswich, Wayne people come to Ipswich, and they'll have all the services at the one location. Is the rationale.
Did she put an email on there?
No, none of this, but I'm sure you can call the office.
Okay.
Yes. That's 301 West Michigan Avenue, and it's suite number 400. Thank you. Without objection, receive open file.
Can I have a copy of that, Mr. Mayor, for my people?
Yeah, ma'am.
And that road stuff, Joe?
Ready to go back?
Yeah. Okay, back to 6F.
And to be paid from the Personnel Department Employee Recognition Budget.
So moved.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Purchase agreement with Jack Doheny Supplies, Northville, Michigan, in the amount of $241,692 for a sewer jet vector to be paid for the water and sewer budget.
Bob, I fear that the tape was moving while it was reprogramming, because it was queued up to start right at the...
Transfer of the cable television franchise agreement from Time Warner Cable Incorporated to Media One of Metropolitan Detroit Incorporated. Support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Yes, Mr. Wood. Oh, go ahead.
Is this going to have any effect on the channels changing and the services that we're receiving now?
Well, Mike Hamlin's behind you there. Mike, if you want to take this and give a little orientation on it.
Thank you, Your Honor, and members of council. My name is Mike Hamlin. I'm the Director of Corporate Affairs for the State of Michigan for Media One. We very much look forward to serving the residents of Wayne. We have over 400,000 subscribers in the state of Michigan, serving 9 communities. We like to pick up where Time Warner has left off and continue serving the residents. In relation to the question about channel lineups, our current plans are to continue with the channel lineup that we currently have in place. Down the road, one of the things that we like to do is do some customer service marketing to find out what kind of channels and services, entertainment, information, type services that that people in Wayne would like to see, and we try to meet those needs as well as possible. And the constraints of the number of channels that we have available on a particular line. So, I guess in short, that's how I answer your question.
Very good. And we also, while we're here, we have Val Wolf, who's in the audience tonight, who's a member of the Cable Commission, along with myself and several other people, and we've reviewed this also. Thanks for coming, Val.
I have a question.
Yes, sure.
What about the monthly rates? Are they going to be the same as what they are with Time Warner?
Currently, they'll stay the same. Every year, the FCC sets what they call a maximum permitted rate for all cable companies in the United States. And we review the particular rates that they set for the franchise that we're looking at and doing business with. There are a lot of variables involved in how we assess whether or not we need to charge a price increase. But just to give you an example, inflation and our fixed and variable costs are something we can look at when we look at how we set our rates. Also the rates, the price that we have to pay to national programmers to bring you the channels that you have, those increase periodically. So in order for us to look at, from a business perspective, how we're doing and whether or not we need to charge a rate, we don't like to charge a rate higher unless we really have to, but occasionally we do. So the current rates are in place. We'll take a look next year after we take over the franchise and review those pricing structures to see whether or not we do need to increase rates. But again, it's something that we look at very carefully and we try to hold our costs to a minimum.
I know the packet that we received, it shows that Westland is higher than Wayne. You know, if you're going to keep the same rates, Westland has Media One, and it's more than what the Wayne residents are paying with Time Warner. You charge one city one rate, another city a higher rate?
We can, because again, there's these variable costs that are associated with each franchise. In some particular franchises, we have made agreements with the city for the franchise to grant them certain donations of equipment or cash over time for them to utilize their cable franchise. In some communities, that may be more than other communities. So, we can pass those costs on, if you will, that are particular to that franchise that are allowable by law. So that's why you see some rates in a particular community higher than other communities.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the information, what you see in the room here this evening was equipment that the cable company has purchased so we could televise the council chamber. Any other questions? Yes.
Are you going to locate in Wayne, or are you going to locate in the same building at Time Warner Center?
Your one facility?
Right here in Wayne.
Oh, yeah. Again, our current plans are to honor all the franchise commitments that we have as far as having a local office and our location, serve our residents of Wayne and Newport. So, yeah, I mean, our current plans are to keep those buildings where they are.
Yes, sir.
There is a fiber optic backbone, and I'll have to turn to Rick Clark, the general manager of Time Warner Systems.
Oh, by the way, that's the other good news. Rick Clark is going to join the Media One company, so that's one of the good news.
That's much twisting of our Rick was able to join the Media One team. We're proud to have Rick.
Just to thank you very much, and just for momentarily, you might like to meet Maria Holmes. She's with Media One. She's with Community Affairs, and Michael Grover with the Media One Legal Department. And yes, the system that Time Warner upgraded here a couple of years back is a fiber optic coaxial hybrid system that they call. That's currently the state of the art, which will probably change tomorrow, but that's what we have in the community. Just a quick comment on that too. I've had the pleasure over the years of working with the commission and the members of the administration and the members of the administration that are on the commission and individual council members, and I'm going to be employed with Media One, and it's always been a great pleasure to be with you folks and work in the city of Wayne with you. To follow up on your question about the office space too, I don't know if these gentlemen are aware of it at this point, but some of the other Media One departments are looking at the additional 2,500 square feet that we have available in the building that we have not currently used, and they have dire need of office space. So you may have more cable people in Wayne.
That's good news. You know, if you've got a neighbor, you got to be careful. Warfield building's right next door.
Yeah.
Val?
What I was getting to then, since we now have the upgraded system, can we now look forward to being able to obtain more channels?
Yes. We're taking a look at, we know the system is from a technical standpoint. As I said, fiber optic driven system. And that gives you a really good lineup right now. But Media One, our plans for the future of all of our communities is to bring enhanced broadband or broadband services to those communities, including high-speed internet access services and some new exciting technologies related to digital television. And once we do a complete assessment of your cable system here and determine what it's going to take for us to come in and kind of boost up a little bit some of the technical engineering kind of requirements of the system to allow us to have these new services, we'll be, coming in gangbusters with that.
I don't just mean the services like that. I'm talking about the game show channel, I'm talking about Fox News TV, more channel programming.
Two ways to answer that. First, I mentioned we like to try to get in touch with the community in terms of doing some marketing surveys. We do that here locally and nationally. And that's how we kind of decide how we want to do what kind of channels we can deliver that would satisfy the most amount of people. So we're always looking at ways to kind of enhance those kind of services. Secondly, I mentioned those digital channels that will be kind of above and beyond your normal kind of basic cable lineup. Unbelievable potential there as far as the number of channels. We can go up to another 200 extra channels on that tier of program. And just the exciting channels that are coming out right now. I mean, it seems like a new channel is invented every day. The Game Show channel, the I Love Ducks channel. It's just really exciting.
This is a great country of fun.
So I really think that, and this is one way to, again, enhance people's entertainment, information, services through your cable. So those things are coming down the pike, and we're going to choose.
Very good. Appreciate it. Yes, Beth? Sure.
We finally do have the advantage of the fact that we have two cable systems in our city now. So if they should decide that they want to raise our rates, they do have competition next door. And that is definitely to our advantage.
Yes, we have, as most people know, two cable systems. We have choice not only with the channels, but we have choice of the cable companies. That is Wayne's choice. I know some people enjoy the Ameritech for whatever reason, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. But they may have a little heavier competition on their hands now with Media One, which is a major player in the cable industry in the United States. But we wish them both well. Yes, especially if you become more affiliated in that building and bring all those folks over there, and they'll become honorary Waynites if they don't already live in Wayne. Thank you.
While we're on the topic of cable, I'm not sure why we're receiving Dearborn's football games instead of Wayne. I don't know if Waynes are available or not. I prefer much rather to watch John Glenn's than Dearborn. I don't know why.
Rick didn't answer that right now. Rick, you want to clarify that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. Actually, what we try to do in the community, and you may not know this, but it costs in excess of $1,000 per game to cover these games. And what we do is we try to look for sponsors, and we do it through our local origination programming, which is currently Time Warner 8, and will be Media One 8 or some may along that line. But first and foremost, what we look at is games for all our customers. For instance, you may notice that you've seen a lot of Dearborn versus Wayne games. That's because we have the franchise in both the city of Wayne and the city of Dearborn, and we like to bring our customers games, local games, that their kids may possibly be on that team. I, for one, have one on the Dearborn Edsel Ford team. So I look forward to, as a matter of fact, I had the pleasure of calling the play-by-play at the Wayne Dearborn Edsel Ford game. So we kind of look for, what fits for both communities, and I'm sure Media One's going to take a look at that and attempt to bring local programming to the community that differentiates us from the competition.
I enjoyed it because, from my perspective, as an elected official, a lot of times I'm flipping through and I find some official that's here on the cable, and it's interesting to get their community's perspective on some things. So I have, from that extent, it's been a positive thing, and I'm sure other people probably just wonder where the Wayne High games are. It sounds like you're going to be able to show them on occasions at that cost or get a local sponsor. That's a good idea.
I think we had the pleasure of scheduling 3 Wayne games this year. The other one was against Dearborn and Fordson, I believe. And I think there's one left. I'm not sure at this point which one it is, but...
Very good. Thanks a lot. We'll vote on the motion now. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Professional services agreement with the Emergency Education Coordinator.
I appreciate you sitting through a replay of that 10 or 15 minutes of the tape, because it basically covers the issues that you were asking about in January, and it also covers what Maria wrote to you about regarding telecommunications regulation, which is the subject of her letter, which is item 6E, and I earlier said would be referred to staff for review and possibly to the Cable Commission for discussion. But this is part of this broadband subject that Mike Haverland was talking about, and Maria has been talking about, in the sense that the cable company can also provide additional channels. They can also provide telephone services. So something for us to be thinking about in the days to come, and what exactly the policies of the city will be relative to that, and whether or not there will be some council action in that way. But I think specifically from the January meeting, we wanted to ask some questions about the increase in rates. And Maria has sat through our meeting to this point, and she's here to answer any questions that you have relative to what Mr. Haverland said, or other thoughts that you have about rates.
Maria, thanks for being patient. Any questions or comments from the council?
Yeah, I really appreciate it if she state the reason why they have the price increase on the citizen of Wayne so soon. I mean, what's the reason for it?
That particular increase that you saw January 1 was in fact an increase that was planned by the previous system owner, which is Time Warner, and was in fact notified to the customers from Time Warner. Media One acquired the system at the beginning of December, I believe, right around the very beginning of December, and that's when we took over. So from this point on would be the time frame which Media One would actually be involved in the decisions with regard to changes in rates.
Yeah, I think the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned that we received the notice from Time Warner, but the billing came from Media One. I remember that item.
Okay, any other?
Those are all my questions about rates.
Why don't we have her here? If you have any other questions on cable, then...
I was just wondering if, I read in the paper that Lansing, the legislature in Lansing was going to be televised on Media One, and I was just wondering if Wayne, I know West Lane carries it, is Wayne going to carry it?
We generally carry what's called MG TV,
Yeah.
and it is coverage of the state legislature. That is part of Media One's television coverage, formerly pretty much known as local programming. And we are in the process of upgrading and changing our system in the Wayne area so that we are able to provide Media One television in our newly acquired systems. And at that point in time, we would be able to provide that service, is my understanding.
Do you know how long that will take?
Well, we're hoping to have the system complete by the end of the year.
I've seen that already on our cable book.
It may very well be that they're able to bring it in other areas. I know it's part-time in some areas, so I know that it's primarily associated with our local programming channel. I have to check to see if it's on.
I think it's channel 11.
Do you have it on channel 11 already?
But you could probably be helpful if you would give us that schedule for at least the council, and maybe we could put it in our newsletter so people that would be interested.
MGTV, when it is on the system, is on from 10 until 2
Right.
and on a part-time basis during the day. And it's generally shared with the channel.
Any other questions or comments? Ed?
I just thought it was interesting that the first month I received my cable bill, I got an increase in rate after the question was asked, rather kind of stepped around it, if you will. But it was a 4.91% increase in the rate. And I know when I was working, if I'd have got a 5% increase in my pay, I would have really appreciated it. And I just thought it was kind of odd that the first bill I get from Media One has a rate increase on it. And by the way, I'm still watching Dearborn and Portson on the channel 12. I don't see very much at all of Wayne.
Saw the Wayne soccer, wasn't it? Volleyball.
And I was promised a schedule of the girls' basketball for Wayne High, and I did not receive that. But you know,
You were promised it by whom, Ed?
I talked to one of the people in Rick Clark's office.
Oh, okay.
One of the secretaries.
The girls' basketball.
Girls' basketball.
Yeah,
Maria.
But all I'm saying is the easiest way, of course, to pass a rate increase on is to say that the previous owner had already planned it. But there's also plans that you can also plan a review, and you can say, well, we don't really need that cost increase. But obviously, they decided they needed it. And I thought it was kind of odd. The first bill I get from Media One says 4.91% increase.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that you do have two cable systems here in Wayne, and you are under what's called effective competition status, which means that Time Warner had already applied for the status with the SEC, and it actually deregulates cable rates altogether. So the concept is that the market of competition is actually what will drive your rate, and your rate here is considerably less than local communities nearby, and is still less than probably the most well-known competitive area, which is the Plymouth Canton Northville area.
Very good. That's good to know, even in spite of the increase. But I'm sure the competition is going to be the name of the game, and that it could get a little close in the coming year.
Maria, are you having difficulty finding sponsors to show these games? Is that why you're showing so many Dearborn games and not very many Wayne? Is it because you haven't found local commercial sponsors?
I'm not directly involved in the local programming department, but I certainly can have them speak to it. The person that's involved primarily with that would be Jackie Kaiser. But I can certainly speak with her and see if there is something that, could be done to assist with that.
The impression we have from Rick Clark, you can see from the tape, was that in order for the games to be shown, local sponsors are sought. And if you need to do some advertising relative to that, we wish you would. So I think the comment by Mr. McMurray is shared by many residents that they would like to see the local schools on athletic events on cable. And if you need sponsors, and maybe some public information relative to that could go out, and business people in this community or others that might want to sponsor would be able to contact Ms. Kaiser or someone else at Media One, so that could be arranged.
I can certainly bring that to your attention and see what we can do.
Are the empty channels being saved for anything?
Are the empty channels being saved for anything? Any future programming that coming down the pipeline?
Okay. When you speak of empty channels, I don't have a channel lineup with me. Is there a particular channel that you're looking at? Is it the kind of skip channels? Is that what
15,
There's a couple of empty ones in the teens, because my TV will flip right through them.
I can certainly check as to particular channels in this area, but there are places where channels are skipped for numerous reasons. Some of them include the fact that that space on the spectrum is reserved for things such as air traffic control, etc. And you have to, by FCC rules, leave that space available and not use those channels. But I would need to check to be able to more directly answer your questions with regard to your particular channels in this community.
If you would forward that information to
Sure,
the
yeah.
manager's office, and he'll pass it to the council
Certainly
and the
will.
cable commission. Appreciate it. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, thank you, Maria. Look forward to working with you.
Next item on your agenda is general items for consideration. Payment of $3,000 to Northville Township for 1999 membership fees for the Western Wayne Special Operation Team to be paid from the police department's forfeiture budget.
Approval, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Earlier this evening, I was returning from Detroit, and I saw the SWAT team heading to that Southwest Detroit incident. And this was in mind. I got this on the agenda for tonight. The guys do a fantastic job. Thank you.
Renewal of the third year of a 5-year contract with D&B Snow Plowing and Lawn Service with a contract price change from $20,104 to $28,500 to cover an increase to 30 cuts at all locations to be paid from the city properties, major and local streets, and automobile parking system budgets.
Approval.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Purchase and installation of an automatic lubrication system for Fire Truck 211 from A&L Systems in the amount of $2,348.15 to be paid from the Fire Department Equipment Replacement Budget.
Move approval.
Moved and supported by everyone. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Purchase of a Darren the Lion costume for the DARE program from Scullin Productions in the amount of $2,475 to be paid from the Police Department DARE budget.
Moved and supported.
I'll support it with an addendum to the motion that
that
our new chief of police wear that costume to the next council meeting so we can see it firsthand. I mean, we're spending some money here in the community, and he's one of our biggest supporters of community policing, and I think it would be interesting to see what this costume looks like firsthand, and who better to model it than our own chief.
That question denied because he already looked like a lion. So I'll save you the trouble, Mr. Chief.
Mr. Mayor? I would also like to add to that and suggest that Mr. Michael Bryan wear the Sparky costume in here, and then together we'll put $1 in between the council and department heads, and we'll donate to both your programs.
We may have a problem with fit in some of these.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, before you vote, if I could ask, so we're not all guilty of micromanagement here, if we could, we'd be glad to have the costume at the next meeting, both of them, if you'd like. But I can't predict who will model that. We'd be glad to have both
Sparky and Darren the Lion.
And
Pluggy, if you like.
At the
next meetings, but I'd appreciate
it very much if you
would let the staff arrange
for them to be properly washed.
I think the challenge is there for the two department heads with donations to their causes if they appear in these uniforms.
Are you telling us you volunteered for this?
I may not be the appropriate model either. One never knows. But we'll see to it that they're both here and that they are in use. And
Okay, without objection, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
And I thank the city manager for saving me from a rather convoluted motion to write.
We depend on you, Doris.
Payment to Elevator Technology on an emergency basis for repairs to the parking structure elevator in the amount of $4,650 to be paid from the automobile parking system repairs and maintenance budget. Support.
Moved and supported. And any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Classification plan amendment to include payroll clerk. Move approval.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Classification plan amendment to include building and grounds 3.
Move approval.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Professional services agreement with Ayers Lewis Norris in May to provide design and consultant services for Phase 2 of the city's water main and sewer replacement program for an amount not to exceed $74,640 to be paid from the water and sewer budget.
Move approval.
Support. Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
5 sets of board and commission minutes before you in the consent calendar.
So move without the exception.
Support.
Moved and supported without exception. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Stand adjourned.
I'm so tired.